Hello, we are live. Hello, chat room. Hello, everyone. It's the pre-show. We got about 10 minutes before we get started with today's SY0-601 Security Plus Study Group. Isn't that what it says right here? I think it does. There it is. See? I got the right Q&A. Everything's up and running. I've just been running through my initial checks. Hello, chat room. Hey, everybody. Thanks for getting here so early, checking in. I see you there. I bring everything up about 30 minutes before we get started. So for 20 minutes, it's just sort of been up on the screen. Looks like the video connections, those are good. We're recording down here. Yep, that looks good. I've already done the podcast intro. You missed all that fun. That was great. So we did that. And now we focus on study group. I've got all new Q&A. Plenty of Q&A for us to go through. And then I've also got, well, we'll take questions after this. So we will do, it is actually Security Plus this time. No, really. I should just change it up there at the top of the hour. We'll do something we've never, it's Project Plus, everybody. No, we are doing Security Plus today, I promise. I promise. Elliot in the chat room passed Security Plus last week. Congratulations. We got folks checking in from St. Vincent. Good to have you here again. VCS. I see you there. We've got folks from Baltimore. Good morning, Baltimore. We've got, I know it's the afternoon, but that's not the song. Hello, Cameroon and Indianapolis. Welcome. California. Out there on the West Coast. Thanks for joining us so early. Hello, Austin. New York City. I'm guessing that's what that is. It's a tough one. Hopefully I've picked a time where I can kind of get the late night or the evening in Europe and the morning in California, and then everybody else is sort of messed up. Hawaii, it doesn't work out for Hawaii. It doesn't work out for Japan, Australia. That's a tough one. But time-wise, I try to at least get, this at least on this part of the world, we got a little bit of light. Hello, Miami, or Miami, depending on who you are and when you got there. Hello, Houston, South Carolina, Temple, Texas. There's Toronto. It's good to have you here, Canada. I'll let the missus know you checked in. Hello, PC, Panama City, checking in. Highway 98. Thanks for being here. Chris passed Security Plus last month. Congratulations. The 601 exam, it's a tough one. To get through it is, that's a big deal. So congratulations. There's Seattle. There's Scotland. So good to have you here. To Scotland. Scotland is checking in strong. Thank you for being here. North Carolina. Where in Scotland are you? I would like to know. I'm just curious. I spent 2 weeks doing a reporting system integration at Royal Bank of Scotland 1 December in Edinburgh, and it was fantastic. Just had the best time. It was so good. I brought Mrs. Professor Messer back to Scotland a couple years ago just because we had such a good time. Hello, North Carolina and Ghana and Philadelphia, PA. Norfolk is here. Minnesota, good to have you here. Hello, Boston. Kent in the UK, welcome. From the AWS data center in Virginia. Well, in fact, if you've downloaded any of my products, if you bought any of my products and downloaded them, they were downloaded from the AWS data center in Virginia. So there you go. Yeah, I know. Australia is a completely different week. I don't even know what day it is, how that works. Hello, Denver. Hello, Idaho. Hello, Virginia. And Edinburgh. Edinburgh, as we would say in the United States, it's Edinburgh. We don't know how to speak English here. India, welcome. Hour outside New York City. That could be anywhere. An hour outside New York City. There's so many different places that could be. Hello, Netherlands and Poland. Security Plus tomorrow. That's going to be a good one, 11 a.m. So that'll be, if you ever get into, well, I guess a good question is, are you going to a testing center? Or are you doing it at home? There's pluses and minuses both ways, right? So you never know. how that's going to go. You just have to prepare. If you're doing it at home, you really have to prepare. Hello, Maryland. My Maryland. I know there's a bunch of data centers for AWS in Virginia, isn't there? There's a lot going on in that part of the world. Hello, North Carolina and Missouri and Rockland in Maryland. Hello, Miami again. Everybody thinks of South Beach. I spent 10 years living in South Florida. So I was down there during the Neil Rogers days. That's sort of how I position when I was in South Florida during the last Neil Rogers days before he moved to Canada. So that's my time frame. The Rick and Suds, Phil Hendry years. There you go. See, that's how I determine. That was back in the day before satellite radio, and that's what we had. It was the best, by the way. If you weren't in South Florida during that time frame, the South Florida radio in that time frame was just amazing. If you're a radio buff, I guess. I was a remote technician. So I would get in my car in the morning. I would go see customers and do technical things, add memory, replace hard drives, warranty repairs, that type of thing. And so I was always in my car. I was always listening to the radio. And WIOD, 610 AM, AM radio. This wasn't that long ago. AM radio, that particular station in South Florida, WIOD, the wonderful Isle of Dreams, was just a phenomenal powerhouse. I imagine it still is. It's official station for the Dolphins. There's a whole much going on down there at that time. Now, of course, the everything's different. You've got satellite radio, you've got streaming, you've got everything. It's so different. It's a different world completely. But at the time, we always think back. I imagine at this time, if you're in this generation now of streaming media, satellite radio, 20 years from now, you're going to be looking back going, remember when we streamed and had satellite radio? I don't know. What is it going to be? We just don't know. So that's kind of how it works. Station does exist. WIOD does exist. They are still there. They're still alive. But will they remain there? Will any of the sort of traditional media? We always think about that. There's always a place, I think, for broadcast because it's so simple to receive and it's local. There's a whole thing. Well, there's a whole conversation, sort of a business conversation that could be had about that. I think about media in a different way. I think about content in a different way because of the way we publish our content, the way that you're able to receive it. I click a button and suddenly this many people are on here watching. That's just crazy. That's ridiculous. It's a thing that should not happen, and yet here we are. And it's great. It's fantastic that it happens. So who knows what's going to happen next, what the next series of things will be. We will see. King Convict Gaming. I'm not sure what to make of that, but nonetheless said pass SY0-601 this weekend. Congratulations. I love the comment, which is good luck to everyone who's still studying. Do not give up. So true. This is an exam you can get through. Sometimes you have to get through it a couple of times before you finally hit the end of that. But it's a good one. Hey, Alabama. Good to have you here. I'm nearby. I'm North Florida. So I got kinfolk up there somewhere. Not exactly sure where they are in Alabama. But it used to be part of my territory as well. So I would go there quite a bit, usually to Birmingham, but sometimes in the southern part. It just depends what's going on. A lot of good times in that part. In the Southeast United States was a big part of my territory for so long. We just had such a lot of fun. 30 seconds. Yep, been to Huntsville a number of times because of that too. So that's great to hear from you. Thanks for joining us. Let's see. We got, this is good. I think we can go ahead and start that up. Let's exit that. We've got 10 seconds, so it's time to get Keynote. It's that button. We're looking for green light. We got it. Very nice. If you take the 1001 test, if you take any of the CompTIA tests at home, your computer does need to have a webcam, and they do need to be able to hear you. So yes, it is true. Top of the hour, everybody. Let's now start this up. My iPad is this shows you the keynote that I will present to you right here. That's the keynote side. This tells me what's coming up next. So this is the presenter view for keynote, a remote presenter view of the keynote that's running on this laptop. So I know what the next slide is going to be before I show it to you so I can lead into it. Enough of this. Let's do a live stream. Here we go, everybody. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the October 2021 Professor Messer SY0-601 Security Plus Study Group. This really is the Security Plus Study Group for October. After a number of different things happening during the month, we finally made it. Thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us. For those of you who are here live, thanks for joining us. We got plenty of live Q&A, but even if you're watching this on demand or on a replay, you can, of course, follow along as well. It doesn't matter that you're not here, although we love to have the Q&A. And in the second hour of this, I will take questions from the chat room. So if you're here live, you're able to ask questions and we can maybe step through some of those. If you are here and watching this and would like to participate live, pop open a new browser window and go to this URL, professormesser.com/QA. If you go to that link, it will bring up a question that is on the screen and waiting for you right now. So feel free to have a look at that. There's also an app that you could get for your favorite app device. Go to your favorite app store and look for the Socrative student app. This is the service we use for our Q&A. Is called Socrative. Go to the Socrative student app. If you use that app, it will ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, ProfessorMesser. So this is what we will be focusing on today. Now, if you've done all of that and you've gone to the right page or you've brought up the app and you've gone to the right room, there will be a question waiting for you. That question asks, if I hit the button, there we go. Which of the following would be the best way to add information to a Linux system log? Which one of these ways would it be? Would it be grep, tail, DNS enum, TCP dump, or logger? Those are your 5 options. Which of the following would be the best way to add information to a Linux system log? Grep, tail, DNS enum, TCP dump, or logger? Now, if it sounds like that's a question from last month, it actually is, because the first question we always do is a rewind question to last month to make sure you can get in, you can answer these questions. So please feel free to step through that. We will come back to this question in just a moment. Thanks for being here. Thanks for those of you who are here live. This is a different experience if you're here live. If you have a chance to join us, go look at the calendar, professormesser.com/calendar. Have a look at when our next live event is. We'd love to have you here. In the meantime, you can always go to professormesser.com/QA and answer the question live if you're here live. If you're not here live, go to our YouTube channel, professormesser.com/YouTube. And we have our weekly Security Plus pop quiz question on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter. And Instagram, professormesser.com/Instagram. So you've got a number of options available. Those are always available. We are always putting new things out. I think in the last couple of days, I put 6 new videos out for Network Plus. There's always something going on, and we're always adding new things. Make sure you add us to the YouTube. As I was watching a YouTube the other day and said, you should subscribe. It's free. Well, yeah, it's free to everybody, but you should subscribe because it's free. I don't know if that's really a draw or not, but we'll throw that out anyway. If you are studying for your SY0-601, your Security Plus certification, then you are studying for the exam that was released on November the 12th of 2020. So we're coming up on almost a year for the Security Plus exam. I can't believe it. The time has just flown by, as they say. The estimated retirement for this is going to be May 2024. There is plenty of time if you are sitting here in October of 2021 to study for this existing exam. Sometimes people are very concerned about retirement dates or when this exam will go away. This exam isn't going away for quite some time. So you got plenty to do. Always focus on whatever the latest thing is. Get your certification in your pocket. Never, never wait to get certified. This is a single exam. The exam is 90 minutes long with a maximum of 90 questions. There's a passing score on this one that's on an odd scale of 100 to 900. You need to earn a 750. So it's unusual the way that the scaling and the scoring is done in the exam, but there it is. There's no way to know exactly how many questions you have to get right or wrong because we believe that each question is worth a different amount of points. So that even complicates things further. The moral to this story is just do the best you can. Don't worry so much about the score. The score will work itself out at the end of the exam. As long as you focus on getting as much right as possible, the score can be whatever it's going to be. And that's how we sort of approach. This is not unusual to CompTIA, sort of common in the industry, that there's no perfect way to follow your score. And I think it's probably by design. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions, like the one I just showed you. And there's also performance-based questions. We will do a performance-based question here in just a moment so you can get a feel for some of those. And I'll show you some new things with performance-based questions on the Professor Messer website in just a moment. Speaking of the Professor Messer website, I have all of these videos available for you to watch online for free. You can go to YouTube, watch the entire course. Every minute of every video of the course is on YouTube. You can go to my website, watch the entire course, every minute of every video. There's no registration. There's nothing behind a paywall. I don't want your email address. None of that. They're just there for you to watch. This is an odd sort of thing to find on the internet these days, but it's high-quality training available to you for free. The goal is for you to get a job or get a better job. I realize some of you would like an offline version of this. Some of you would like to be able to have my course notes, practice exams, everything I make sort of bundled into one place. Well, I did that. I made my Success Bundle. This is my SY0-601 Success Bundle that has my course notes, my practice exams, the audio from the course in MP3 format. If you're in a car, you're driving, you're working out. I've got the video course in an offline form. If you don't want to always be connected to the internet to watch the videos, those are there. You've got my Exam Hacks ebook. You've got special access to this study group. There's plenty in there. You can have a look at the details. Go to professormesser.com/601SB. I mentioned being able to having something new on the website. It's my Take 10 Challenge for the SY0-601. Go to professormesser.com/take10. And I mentioned this because I added a few new things that I'd like you to try out for me and tell me what you think here in the next week. The Take 10 Challenge page, here it is right here, with a special ad there on the page. But you can see there I've got the 4 Take 10 Challenge quizzes, and I've started adding performance-based questions to the page. So you can click on a performance-based question. These are effectively replays of our study group performance-based questions, but they're scrambled up and different every time. So you can go on here and start dragging and dropping. I'm not reading this, so this is completely wrong. I'm just giving you an idea of how this works. You can plug in what you think the answers are. You can submit the answers and see if you got any of them right. And I just did this randomly. Oh, I got one of them right. I'll take it. That's and if you don't want to do it again, you got a choice. You could just start again, puts it in a different order. All of that at professormesser.com/take10. That should be a lot of fun. Go try those out. Tell me what you think. We'll see how that works out. If you are watching this replay live, or you're watching this live and you're watching the replay on demand, then you're watching the video version. But I have an audio version of this as well. Go to professormesser.com/podcast, and you can download this or add it to your favorite podcast listening program. professormesser.com/podcast, and all of our study groups are out there in podcast format. Don't forget about our YouTube channel, professormesser.com/YouTube. And I will also remind you that the YouTube video descriptions all have timestamps on them, so you can see exactly when the study group starts. You can click on the link that's there and go directly to the point of the study group, a particular question, a particular answer. You can find exactly what you're looking for. Go to professormesser.com/YouTube, and you'll find all of that. If you haven't been to our website lately, you may not even realize we have a Discord, so you can find a 24/7 chat. There's always somebody in there that is helping, answering questions. That's where I usually am when I'm not here live. So go to ProfessorMesser.com/Discord. We'd love to have you join. Love to have you in there. And if you have any questions or something that you want more information on, it's a great source of information for your studies. If you are ready to take the exam, you're going to need to buy a voucher. You're going to need to purchase the exam. Now, you could buy it on the Pearson VUE website at full price, but why would you do that? Why wouldn't you get a discount off the vouchers? And instead of hunting around the internet for a discount code or some type of coupon, what if there was just a website that had all the vouchers already discounted? You don't have to hunt for a discount code. You don't have to try to find a coupon. They're already marked down at ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers, where you not only get the discounted vouchers, but if you buy it on my website, you get a free copy of my Exam Hacks ebook. So there's always something that can maybe help you a little bit, either learn the content you need for your certification, or in this case, save some money when you're ready to take this exam. You'll find that at ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers. Let's go back to that question I asked originally, which was, which of the following would be the best way to add information to a Linux system log? We've had a number of people put their options in. 71% of you said it's Logger. That, of course, is the correct answer. Logger is what you would use. This is Logger, L-O-G-G-E-R, not L-A-G-E-R, which does something completely different. Logger adds information to the system log. This is a great way to add information or document things in the system log as you're working on a system. So if you're doing an upgrade, you can maybe add to the documentation of your system log, upgrade started, date and time, I'm this person. It goes in the system log. You can perform the upgrade. And then if somebody is going back into the logs trying to figure out what happened at this time, oh, wait, there's some documentation in the log that somebody put in there that says what was going on at that particular time frame. So Logger is the way to do that. We really didn't fool anyone with this one. Or everybody remembers from last month that Logger was the right answer. That's the answer. The best way to add information to the system log would be Logger. grep obviously searches through files for particular text. It doesn't add information to a log. Tail lets you see the end of the log, but does not add information to the log. DNS enumerate, DNS enum, is used for DNS queries, not anything to do with adding information to a system log. And TCP dump lets you see the raw packets going across the network, but it also does not add anything to the system log. So all of these are great utilities to know, and all of these are utilities you should know. But the one we were looking for this question was indeed Logger. Answer E. If you answered that, you got it absolutely right. Well done. Well, as many of you know, the first new question of the month is always a performance-based question. Oh, before we get to that, Ken Deej in the chat room with a $20 super chat. Thank you for that donation. Ken says, passed the Security Plus Friday in large part to your videos. It's the least you could do. Well, it means a lot to us. And I will say that we did the least part of this. You are the one that did all the hard work. You're the one that passed the exam. Congratulations. This is a great way to study for the exam, is to go in and follow these study groups, watch the videos, get a good book. We've got tons of resources on our site. Congratulations on your Security Plus, and thanks so much for that super chat. Let's do a performance-based question. Many of the performance-based questions we often do on our study groups are matching questions. They're fill in the blank. They're putting things in a particular order. They might be drag and drop, but I thought I would do a little bit different this time. I would like to perhaps have you perform a function on your computer. So here is your performance-based question of the month. For you to do this, you will need to have a command prompt available. So if you're on a mobile device, maybe think about what you would do. If you're on your computer, on a Windows, Mac OS, Linux desktop, you could perform this performance-based question, which asks, using netstat, determine the next hop from your computer to IP address 9.9.9.9. Now, for those of you familiar with Quad 9, the DNS server service, that is 9.9.9.9 is Quad 9. That is that DNS company. So I want you to go to the command prompt, and everyone will have a different answer. by the way, or most of us probably should have different answers for this, but I'll show you how to get the answer on my computer, and then you can see if you did it right on yours. So the question is, using netstat, determine the next hop from your computer to quad 9. Do not put answers in the chat room. Please don't put any hints in the chat room. We're going to try to do this ourselves. So go to the command prompt. I gave you a hint. We're using netstat. And I guess if you wanted to cheat a little bit, you could do the netstat with the dash question mark or with the man page or with the help. But that is one of those where hopefully you know how to do this. This also is in my Security Plus course. It's also a utility you need to know about to be able to answer this. And if you think, obviously you could put in what you think the next hop will be, but maybe if you put in the netstat flag that you're going to use to show this, you could put it in at the Professor Messer website at professormesser.com/QA. So I would know, okay, you really were able to do this. In fact, I'm going to kind of look at the results coming in. Oh, I need to click it so that you can do that. There we go. And you can see that changed on your screen as well. So hopefully this is one you can do. Yeah, bring up the command prompt, bring up a terminal screen, bring up an option that can get you to the command prompt, and using netstat, determine the next hop from your computer to quad 9. And I'm looking for you to provide me with the IP address of the next hop that would get you to quad 9. That's what we're looking for. This would be a common troubleshooting task, by the way. You're sitting down at a computer for the first time. They're saying, I'm having a hard time accessing this particular site. So now you can go through the process of troubleshooting that. This is one of the steps that you would use to be able to troubleshoot this particular issue. So we wouldn't just sit down and just start pulling up next hops of machines without a reason. But if somebody's telling us, I'm having connectivity issues, or I think the firewall might be blocking something, oh, well, let's see what your next hop is, and then we can start examining where all of the hops are to get to quad 9 and kind of step through those links, and then we can compare that, for instance, to our firewall rules. It's a good example of how this might help you from a security perspective. This is one, by the way, that knowing netstat is pretty important. Netstat is a very broad utility. There are so many different options in netstat that will do so many different things. It will give you so much different types of information. So we're looking for a very specific type of information. Netstat is not the only way to provide this, but I wanted to give you a question that would apply across multiple operating systems. If you're in Windows, there's other ways to do this as well. If you know the other way, I'll give you extra credit if you happen to know what that other way is. But this is probably the most common way in netstat, so that if you know this command in Linux, you can run the same thing in Mac OS. You can run the same thing in Windows. It all gives you the same information. So it's one of those that once you learn it in one OS, you know it in every OS. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asked, using netstat, determine the next hop from your computer to quad 9. So the command you would use would be route or netstat. You can use either one. That's how I mentioned in Windows, you could use the route command. But in Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, netstat-r shows you the IP routing table. This is what you would use to be able to do that. This, in fact, I did it on my computer to be able to do this. So we've got a netstat-r that I did on my Windows machine. Is this my Windows computer? It is. So in fact, this is a virtual machine I have running in boot camp on my local Mac. So this is Windows 10. So I did a netstat-r right here at the top. You can see the command that I typed in. The -r shows you the routing table. And so I pulled out just the IPv4 routing table. Now, if you've already been through Network Plus, this probably looks familiar. If you've not been through Network Plus, then this may be something very unusual to see, or something you haven't worked with before. This is the routing table of my local Windows computer. This routing table shows me how I would get to different IP addresses or IP subnets. And you can see all of the network destinations are in that very first column. If I need to get to an IP destination of 127.0.0.0 with a net mask of 255.0.0.0, well, that's my loopback. That's my local machine. Then it says, yep, you're on link. The way you would get to that is through your local IP address 127.0.0.1. So that gives you information about those and how you would do that. It also is not putting these in any particular order. You'll notice it's kind of scrambled up into different IP addresses. Some of it in some operating systems may show it even in a numerical order. Some operating systems do not. So you have to find the entry that is most specific to the location that you're trying to get to. The one we're trying to get to is quad 9, 9.9.9.9. So let's find what destination would match best for 9.9.9.9. So the destination 0.0.0.0 is the default route. That covers everything. That is not specific at all, but it, as at least for the first entry in the routing table, that does match our destination. 9.9.9.9 is certainly one of the available IP addresses, so an all zeros destination would match that one. Let's go through the other destinations. 10.1.10.0, that's not going to match quad 9. 10.1.10.46, that's my local IP address. That doesn't match quad 9. 10.1.10.255, a broadcast address, doesn't match quad 9. So far we don't have any other hits yet. 127.0.0, anything starting with 127, that doesn't match. 224, that's your multicast addresses that you can listen in and communicate with. Doesn't match quad 9 either. And then finally, all ones broadcasts here at the bottom don't match quad 9. The only option in this routing table that matches 9.9.9.9 is the very first one, is our default route. So we know we can look at that default route and see for 0.0.0.0 with a subnet mask of 0.0.0.0, which means everything, then we have a gateway address or a next hop of 10.1.10.1. So if I was going to answer this question from my network, the answer would be 10.1.10.1. So there is an example of where your answer is going to be different unless you happen to choose the same local IP configuration that I have, which you could do because that is a private IP address. You could have your network running with the same private IP address, but your network might be a 192.168. In fact, I'm going to show the answers on my screen where some folks may have put in. Some people have a 172 address. Some people have a 192.168 address. Some people have a 10 dot address. Some people have and I don't know if that one's correct, have some public IP addresses. I doubt you're on the public side right now to be able to do that. So this is one where you can see what the next hop would be based on your internal routing table. Now, in the chat room, some folks are asking, what about using other utilities to do this? What about using traceroute? What about using, what if I was to do TCP dump and run a ping? Wouldn't that show me what the next hop would be? It would, but that wasn't the question. The question was using netstat. How would you do this? So you could use traceroute, but again, traceroute is showing you a entirely different set of things. In fact, it would take longer to run traceroute if all you were looking for was the next hop, because traceroute now has to go through and perform its entire analysis of what those hops would be all the way till it gets to quad 9. That's going to take 10, 15, 20, maybe 30 seconds to complete, unless you tell it not to use the DNS lookup. In any case, you've got the ability with netstat-r to have instantaneous access to this information. So you don't have to wait around for DNS lookups. You don't have to wait around for it to perform its traceroute. You simply type in netstat-r and you've got all the information you need. Quad 9 is the 9.9.9.9 IP address. Quad 9 is a DNS provider. So if you wanted to change your DNS to be a third-party DNS provider, Quad 9 is one of those. So that's the shortcut. Instead of me saying 9.9.9.9 over and over and over again, we call it Quad 9, which is a much easier way to do it. And there are IP addresses run by Cloudflare. There's others in other places as well. There's lots of Google's is 8.8.8.8. There's lots of different DNSs out there that you can use, and some are better than others. Some provide you with different advantages than others. But in this case, Quad 9 is something very public, so it was an easy one to use. Your IP address is going to be a little bit different, but as long as you can remember those commands, netstat-r, then I think you'd be in really good shape. That is a good example of using the command line. Some folks in the chat room were asking, so are there simulation performance-based questions for Security Plus? There could be. There certainly could be. They give you a lot of different command lines you have to know in the exam objectives. So certainly that's one of the available things they could ask. It's always there and something you should consider. You may not get any, but that's one of the things about these exams. They can't ask you every possible question from the exam objectives, but anything in there is up for grabs. They could certainly do that. Let's shift gears back to a multiple choice-based question. I've got another question for you. This one asks, which of these provides the best way to indirectly identify an open port? Which of these provides the best way to indirectly identify an open port? Is it the harvest? Well, that's the wrong button. There we go. The harvester, DNS enum, scanless, curl, or sniper. And I know it's spelled SN1PER. That's not a misspelling. That's how you would spell it, but you would call it sniper. Which of these provides the best way to indirectly identify an open port? Is it the harvester, DNS enum, scanless, curl, or sniper? Got to be one of those, right? See if you know these. In the 601 exam, there were a number of additional utilities added to the command line and things you need to know how to, I don't know how to use, but you need to be familiar with what they do. So this is a good example of all 5 of these are real things. All 5 of these come directly from the exam objectives. So they're things you need to know what all of them do. If you don't recognize any of them, make a note that, oh, I need to go back and read about the harvester, DNS enum, scanless, curl, or sniper, so that you are familiar, because this could be asked another way, referencing a different utility. So that's why whenever I mention, when I put these up, I want you to be able to do that. Some of you are working on this. I notice a few people are saying, my YouTube looks funny. Well, you click the cog wheel down at the bottom of your YouTube. You can specify what resolution you would like to run at, and you'd be just fine. You've got those options. There's been some weird things with YouTube recently where my local machine will not show HD. It will only show 360p, or 480p. That's it. It won't show any of the HD, and I have to manually go to HD until I restart my browser. So you may have something familiar to that too. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. That's the URL that's on your screen. Lock that answer in. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll be able to figure out what these answers will be, and we'll go through them in just a moment anyway. We'll all be able to see what it is, but where you would answer would be at professormesser.com/QA. Be the best way to go. This is also, these commands is just a subset of what you need to know. There are an extensive set of commands and utilities you need to be familiar with. So make sure you're very familiar with those. So let's go back to this and be able to see this. Let's see what you think the answer is. The question again is, which of these provides the best way to indirectly identify an open port? Is it going to be the harvester, DNS enum, scanless, curl, or sniper? Let's see what you think the answer is. 38% of you say scanless, 23% of you say the harvester, 17% say sniper, 13% said DNS enum, and 9% said curl. I thought curl did everything. Doesn't? Well, it does most things. In this case, we were asking for a very specific type of issue. We wanted to identify an open port, but we didn't want to let the people know that we were the ones scanning their system. We wanted to scan it indirectly. We wanted to use a proxy, effectively, to have another machine go scan it and then report to us what the results of the scan are. And in fact, there is a utility that will do this for you. That utility is Scanless. That's what you would use. It will scan it from a different location. There are a number of different locations you can choose from. It brings up a list of those sites: Hacker Target, IP Fingerprints, Ping EU, Spider IP, and others. So if you're needing to scan something and maybe you're not able to scan from your site, maybe it's restricted or it's firewalled, you can have someone else scan it and simply give you the report on what this is. Your IP address is not the one scanning the device, so you are a little bit hidden from that perspective, that you can scan for open ports but not give yourself away. You might be giving away that you are scanning the device. You can't restrict that, but it's coming from one of these proxies, so it would be something that's a little bit more indirect instead of direct. Now, if you wanted to scan directly, you would use Nmap or one of the many other scanning utilities that you could use for this. But I wanted to be able to do an indirect utility to make that happen. So that's why in this case, you'll notice I didn't give you Nmap as an option, because there's all kinds of scripts that you can get for Nmap that can do things like this, but Nmap wasn't one of your options. The question specifically asked which of these provides the best way to indirectly identify an open port, and you must choose from one of those. The only one here, really the one that is the best way of all of these, is indeed Scanless. If you answered Scanless, 40% of you now got that one absolutely correct. That is the right answer. 22% said the Harvester. The Harvester is great for obtaining open source information from a device, OSINT. But this is not one of those cases. We're looking for an open port. Open ports are not open source content. You would physically have to send a query to that device and analyze the response to be able to know if a port happens to be open. DNS enum, as we mentioned earlier, is a DNS enumeration tool. That is not what would be gathering open port information. It can tell you a lot about a DNS setting, DNS configurations, but not open port information. curl, client URL, is a great utility to be able to query a web server and receive the HTML response from that server and be able to see it on the screen and even automate some of those things. But it doesn't help you identify open ports, certainly not easily. So it would not be the best way to do that. And then Sniper, another great utility to use. I have all of these utilities are in the videos that I have available on my site, specifically under the reconnaissance tools. There they are, right at the bottom, section 4.1. This one happens to be under reconnaissance tools part 2, and I think that Sniper's in there as well. So I demonstrate those and give you an idea of what's involved in running these utilities and why you would ever use them. And in this particular case, where you want to identify an open port, but not directly, you want to identify it indirectly, Scanless is indeed the correct answer. If you answered C, Scanless, you got it absolutely correct. Let's do another Security Plus question. This question asks, which of the following focuses on a user's control of their personal data? Is that PCI DSS, SIM, HIPAA, SOX, or GDPR? Which of the following focuses on a user's control of their personal data? Is it PCI DSS, SIM, HIPAA, SOX, or GDPR? If you think you know the answer, don't go to that website. Go to this one. There you go. I will get these buttons straightened out in just a moment. Go to ProfessorMester.com/QA. Lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We want to see if we can really figure this out without any help from anyone else or any other details, just as if you were sitting in the exam, which is pretty important too. Isaac K in the chat room with the $9.99 super chat. Thank you for that donation, Isaac, very much. Isaac says, passed the exam on Monday, got the professor's bundle. Thank you again. Cannot thank you enough. Very helpful material. Watch the YouTube videos over and over. A great way to do it. And pass the exam on Monday. It's got to feel good, right? That's it. As I mentioned earlier, it's a tough exam. It is a big exam. It's the biggest Security Plus exam they've ever offered. And passing that exam is, it's got to give you a good feeling because you were able to get through a lot of content to be able to pass this exam. So this is one where finally You've got it done. And make sure that you always just keep that certification updated. Make sure you always keep it renewed. Now you never have to take the exam again. Most people these days renew, I would imagine, by taking the CertMaster CE, which is an online CBT that allows you to do that. So that's one of those that I think is important to know about. So in the chat room, are questions about U.S. laws and compliance acts in the international exam? The exams are the same regardless of where you are in the world. So yes, you will see questions, because even if you are in the UK, the compliance rules and regulations are probably going to affect your company as well. If you do any work with the U.S., it's probably going to have some impact on you. Same thing for the U.S. There are compliance laws in the U.K. or EU where you also have to be able to do that. So make sure that you're familiar with that process and that you know these different types. They could come out on any of these exams for sure. Also in the chat room, question about how many CEUs for this webinar. You'll be able to earn 1 hour of a webinar category CEU by doing this, so make sure. It is a CBT. It is a computer-based training, is CertMaster CE. So that's what that is. Go to CompTIA's website. They have a description on CertMaster CE, so you can purchase it, go through it on your own time. It takes a number of hours to go through, but once you finish, you're now recertified for 3 years. That's it. You have to read the content and answer questions. You have to get the questions 100% correct. If you don't get them 100% correct, you can do it over again and over again and over again until you do. Very similar to other certification or recertification methods I've seen in other industries. So it's just very simple to do. You don't have to collect CEUs. You don't have to pay maintenance fees. You don't have to take another exam. It's so much easier. So that's what I always recommend. If you can, take the CertMaster CE, a great way to do it. Let's look at this question, which asks, which of the following focuses on a user's control of their personal data? Is it PCI DSS, SIM, HIPAA, SOX, or GDPR? We have 56% of us that say it's GDPR. We've got 23% that said it's HIPAA. And then you've got 10% that says PCI DSS. Single digits, 5% apiece for a SIM and for SOX. So you've got a few options there. 56%, it's a pretty solid one. And that's because I would imagine many of you are familiar with the European Union requirements for the General Data Protection, GDPR. The General Data Protection Regulation is what provides a user with the ability to control what happens to their data. At least that's the idea. Not entirely true, but it's mostly true, where the user can now decide what website is allowed to see their data, how their data is controlled, where it goes, what happens with it. And you can ask a website, if they are in the EU, please delete all of my data, and they have to delete it. So it's just part of the law. They have to remove you. At one point, this was called the right to be forgotten, which was a little bit of an overreach. That's not entirely true. The concept, I think, was there, but there are a number of different things that a website can say, well, we can't delete this information because of these reasons. So it's not an all or nothing scenario. There are nuances with this regulation, but all of the details of this should be in the privacy policy of the website. Go to professormesser.com and you can watch this video in section 5.1, security regulations and standards. So plenty to work on there. There is a number of different options here. 23% of you said HIPAA. The Healthcare Act is the Healthcare Portability and Accountability Act is a great one because for healthcare in the United States, it keeps your healthcare information private. It enforces encryption for not only transmission, but storage of your data. It limits who would be able to give your healthcare information to someone else. But you as a user don't have any control of that. That is all the healthcare industry. So a user's control of personal data, HIPAA really doesn't give you a lot of that. You as a user don't have any control of this. You can't tell a doctor, delete all my healthcare information, please. No, we're not going to do that. We don't have to do that. And so HIPAA is great for protection, but doesn't give you any rights or control of that data. The PCI DSS, the payment card industry's DSS, the way that you can manage to keep your credit card numbers private is thanks to the PCI DSS requirements from the payment card industry. So another example of data that's protected, but you don't have any right to control that data as an individual user. It does help you know, or at least give you the perspective that you will indeed be assured that anything being sent with your credit card information will be encrypted over that link. That's the goal with PCI DSS. A SIM is a security information and event manager, great for reporting, but doesn't help you at all with controlling your own data. And then SOX is the regulation. This is a federal regulation in the United States focusing on the information regarding finances in an organization. So if you are part of an executive team and you have to give information about your finances to the rest of the world, these are a set of regulations that will determine how this information is provided, and if you don't give the right information, what the penalties of that would be. So the only one here that really at all focuses on a user's control of their personal data is GDPR. And although that's something very specific to the European Union, there are a number of companies in the United States that will also try to comply with GDPR, although we are not legally required to comply with it. It's just kind of a nice thing to do, including myself. I certainly have that as well. I have the GDPR mindset, although if you purchase something from me, there are other regulations in the United States that require that I keep that information around. So I can't delete some of this financial information because the IRS requires me to have it. So there's a balancing act, and I try to balance that very carefully between your privacy and the information I'm required to maintain. But GDPR in this particular case is the right answer. That's what you want to shoot for, is that General Data Protection Regulation. Answer E, 57%, if you got that one absolutely right. Well done. Let's do another one. I need to get through a lot more questions on here. Let's do a question from my practice exam book. We'll do one of those, maybe one you haven't seen before. If you have not seen my practice exam book before, I wrote this book because I really wasn't happy with the level of the quality of Q&A that you could get on the internet for the Security Plus. In fact, Devin in the chat room with a $5 super chat said that, I know it's a huge body of work. Are you planning on creating practice exams book for Network Plus? Devin must have seen my practice exam books for A Plus and Security Plus. My absolute goal is to create a practice exam book for Network Plus as well. Thank you for the super chat and a great question, because that one would be good as well. This is also the practice exams that I have here are 3 separate full-size practice exams, performance-based questions, multiple choice questions. Everything is in here. Let me just pull it up. We'll go through one of them. And I'll give you a feel for what this is like. Here is question A12 from my practice exams book. Again, no answers in the chat room, but we'll go through this. Elizabeth, a security administrator, is concerned about the potential for data exfiltration using external storage drives. Which of the following would be the best way to prevent this method of data exfiltration? Is it A, create an operating system security policy to prevent the use of removable media? Is it B, monitor removable media usage in host-based firewall logs? Is it C, only allow applications that do not use removable media? And answer D is define a removable media block rule in the UTM. So you've got a few options to choose from. Now, this is a PDF. So if you have a PDF or a PDF reader that can annotate, you can mark different things on the screen if you would like, so that you can come back to that later. You can draw circles. You can do other things if you have PDF annotation. But I've also got links in this that will take you to the answers as well. So for example, these on the right side that show quick answers on page 33. And if you had the physical book, you could actually turn to page 33 to see what the detailed answer might be. or what the quick answer might be, or go to page 49 to view the detailed answer. Now I'm going to just click on this because this is a hot link in the PDF. I'm going to click on page 49 where it gives me the question again, and it shows me the answer is A, create an operating system security policy to prevent the use of removable media. And when you go through any of these questions in my book, of course, every correct answer tells you why that answer was correct. Now, the problem I have when I take these is I get them wrong. But a lot of the tools and Q&A that I've used in the past did not explain to me why I got the question wrong. So in my book, every incorrect answer tells you why the answer was incorrect so that you can learn something if you get it wrong. You'll understand why that's the wrong answer. You'll understand why it's the right answer. And in fact, if you get the question right, I always recommend that you go through all the wrong answers because the wrong answers could come up on your exam as well as the correct answer. So it's nice to know what the real answers are in here. Also, right there at the bottom is a QR code and a link that will take you to my website to the video that describes the topic that's mentioned in the question. So that if you want a little more detail, you want to flesh this out a little more, you don't remember anything about data exfiltration and external storage devices, and you want a little bit more detail, you can go right to the answer. This is my practice exams ebook. You can find out more about this at professormesser.com/securitype and find out more about this. This is one of those that I think provides a lot of detail, kind of fills in the gaps for you. You don't want to start with this, but once you go through your books, your videos, and you're really ready to take the exam, go through some practice exams. See how well you do. And I think this is going to help you as well. Once you're done reading this, I go in my PDF reader, I just click the back button, and then I can go to the next question that's in the list. So it's an easy way to move around the PDF. A lot of people think, well, it's just a book. There's not really any interactivity in it, but I built some into the PDF. So you can also purchase the physical book. You can see it's a big old book with plenty of questions in here. If you purchase the physical book, you get the digital book for free. So while you're waiting for this to be delivered, you can download the digital version right away and get access to that. Find out more at professormesser.com/securitype. Well, a couple super chats came through. Roberto, thank you for the $10 super chat. Roberto says, a year ago, passed the A+ in Security Plus. Today, I have a better job, better opportunities. That's the way it's supposed to work. Congratulations. He says, thank you and keep it up, PM. I absolutely will. As long as everybody's still getting these jobs, you're still working on getting the better job, getting the better opportunities, I'll keep making videos for you. Congratulations. You did the hard work. So well done with that. Skip in the chat room. Skip01, Skip01, $5 super chat. Thank you. Just purchased the notes and exam combo for the Security Plus 601 and a $5 super chat. You're too kind. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for your support. And I think you're going to enjoy the notes and the practice exams with the combo there. If you buy them both together on my site, you get a little bit of money off. So it's kind of nice to have that there. All of these are available on my site. And if you have questions about those, feel free to hit the Contact Us link on the site, and I'll be glad to answer any questions for those as well. Let's do another question. I'm talking way too much on this one. I want to cram in a few more questions for you. This question asks, which of these attack types would cause a switch to send data to all interfaces? Would it be DNS poisoning, a rogue access point, bluejacking, MAC flooding, or domain hijacking? Which of these attack types would cause a switch to send data to all interfaces? Would it be DNS poisoning, a rogue access point, bluejacking, MAC flooding, or domain hijacking? If you know the answer, use the URL that's right there on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Lock in the answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We will step through this one. Of course, all of those real things that I've listed there, those are all actual exam objectives. So all of them exist in the world. They are all effectively attack types. So we have to know which one of these would cause this particular kind of problem. If you think you know, go to professormesser.com/QA, lock in your answer, see if you happen to know what this is. This is always a good one. In the chat room, Maskler asks, do I have a book? I don't write textbooks. So if you're looking for a textbook, it is not something that I can provide. I do have a list of recommended textbooks out there, so feel free to have a look at that. I think that's one where there's a lot of options available for textbooks. Some are good, some are okay, some are really good. You'll have to kind of look around Amazon, see which ones work best for you. But on my website, under each menu option is a list of recommended study materials. And I put some books out there. The most popular ones are out there, and being able to work through those. It's always a good one if you're ever in the case where you're trying to figure it out. This is, sometimes you need some additional study materials. Those recommended study materials might help you out quite a bit. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, which of these attack types would cause a switch to send data to all interfaces? Is it DNS poisoning, rogue access point, bluejacking, MAC flooding, or domain hijacking? 74% of you say it's MAC flooding. We have 10% of you that said rogue access point, 9% said DNS poisoning, almost exactly the same with both of those. We have 4% that said domain hijacking and 2% that said bluejacking. Well, 75% of you say it's MAC flooding. Well, that's because if you looked into a switch and you looked at the MAC address table in the switch, you would know that it's only so big. There's only so many entries you can fit into that table. So what if you fill up the table? What if an attacker started sending traffic with many different source MAC addresses, and you started filling up every entry of the table, and the entries fill up the entire table? You can't fit anything else into the MAC address table on the switch. Well, if that's the case, then the switch needs to be able to still send information to everyone, but now it doesn't have the information it needs for everybody. So instead of directing traffic like a switch always does, you effectively turn the switch into a hub. You're now sending traffic out every single interface of the switch, and it is acting exactly like a hub would be. Now, this means that if you're an attacker, if all traffic is going to all interfaces, well, now you can start capturing that traffic and really be able to parse out things that may not already be encrypted. Another good reason why encryption is so important. This idea of allowing someone to flood your network with these MAC addresses can be controlled. There's usually a configuration setting within the switch where you can define port security. That's what Cisco calls it. Other manufacturers call them different things, where you can limit how many MAC addresses can come from a particular interface, so this MAC flooding and MAC table overflow will not occur. So a great thing to use. MAC flooding is the right answer. It would not be DNS poisoning, which would either change, modify, or redirect somebody to a different website. That would not cause a switch to send data to all interfaces. A rogue access point would allow people access to your network through an access point that you did not authorize. That doesn't allow a switch to send traffic to all interfaces. That's not going to help you. Bluejacking, very an antiquated method of attacking mobile devices using Bluetooth, which is more of a historical footnote at this point, since bluejacking isn't something that most devices are susceptible to. Really, any devices these days susceptible to. So it would not be bluejacking. And bluejacking itself does not cause a switch to send data to all interfaces, so that's not going to be the case either. And then you got domain hijacking, where somebody has hijacked an entire fully qualified domain name, also not causing a switch to send data to all interfaces. 75% of you, maybe I made that one too easy. It chose MAC flooding. That is the right answer. That's the one you would use to be able to do that. Air is dry. $5 super chat donation in the chat room. Thank you. Air is dry says, love the content. Helped me pass A+. Working on Security Plus. Congratulations. Keep doing that. Keep doing what you're doing. And a shout out for Tallahassee. Thank you. Which is where our studio is. That's where our world headquarters is. Here in Tallahassee, Florida. At least this time through. Maybe we'll change it. We'll have a different city every time. That's impractical. But maybe we'll do it anyway. See how that works, like the old David Letterman show. So at this point, if you answer D, Mac flooding, 75% of you got that one absolutely right. If you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit and you would like to receive an email from me that has been digitally signed certifying that you were here and you watched this 1 hour of a webinar, then here's the process you must follow to be able to receive that email. If you do not follow this process, you will not receive the email. You go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. On that website, there's a link to Contact Us. Click the Contact Us link. When it brings up the form, put in your name, your email address. In the subject line, put October 2021 Security Plus, so I know which study group this came from. And in the body of the message, on a line by itself, put the super secret code word of the month, Mac flooding. Mac flooding is the super secret code word of the month. Then if you'd like to put anything else in the body of that message, I read through every single one of these. I'm not able to respond back to every single one of these, but I do read through every single one of them. Please feel free to put anything else you'd like in there. Sometimes it's good stuff. Usually it's good stuff. Sometimes it isn't, but you put whatever you'd like, whatever you're feeling. Just put your feelings into the message. And then I will send you back an email that has been digitally signed that says you must have been here. I hereby certify and grant you access. Here you go. Here's the email. And then you can use that for any CEUs, whether they are CompTIAs or anyone else's for that matter. Another one to work through. So that's how you can earn a 1 hour webinar CEU with an email that certifies it. Now, you don't have to do the email to say that you were here, but sometimes CompTIA likes to audit these things. It's nice if you have some proof. And so I like to give you that proof. In the chat room, Keith Moore with a $5 super chat. No message, just Keith being Keith. Keith being you're the number one. Thank you for the $5 donation. We appreciate that. These donations go a long way. We create these videos so that you can learn everything you need to learn to get through these certifications. I don't expect you to do any of that. It's not a requirement, but it does help keep the lights on. We do appreciate that. Thank you for this. The CEUs I just mentioned are there if you have already earned your certification and you want to have this certification renewed. Collecting CEUs is a common way to renew a certification. I mentioned earlier the CertMaster CE is another way, so it's another way to do it. Also in the chat room, £5 super chat donation. Adeniji, Charles, I'm going to go with that. We're going to call you Charles. Thanks, Charles, for the $5 donation. And Charles says, thanks for all your videos and content. I think I did pretty well with that. Had to parse that one out and figure those details out. That's one you should absolutely do. Mac flooding, the super secret code word of the month. Please don't put that in the chat. We want to make sure we don't have, you got to go through and watch this like everybody else to be able to know what those happen to be. We'll talk about home labs in the after show. We got a little bit of time, though. I want to get through at least another question, so let's do another one. This question asks, a user has an image with data hidden inside of the file. Which of the following would describe this data storage? Would it be hashing, steganography, quantum computing, asymmetric, or blockchain? A user has an image with data hidden inside of the file. Which of the following would describe this data storage? Is it hashing, steganography, quantum computing, asymmetric, or blockchain? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. This is what you want to work towards, is figuring out those details. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. Matt in the chat room says, love the content. Earned your Security Plus 501 before it was retired. That is excellent that you were able to get that done. The 601, considerably larger. So you don't want to be that one to be able to have this Security Plus 501 was a great one to get, because those of you that got that one, you have exactly the same Security Plus certification as anyone else. So that's great. Now you can just renew it every 3 years. And it makes it very easy to maintain and keep all of those up to date. Hopefully that would be fit. Whenever you step through these, that's the thing that is the most important, is the employers are looking for you to be certified. They don't really care which version of the exam you took, only that you knew enough to earn the Security Plus certification. You could have the Security Plus certification from 10 years ago. You've just been constantly renewing it through the years. You are just as Security Plus certified as somebody who passes it today. So that's the value of these certifications, and being able to make that happen. Let's see how you did with this question that said, this question asks, a user has an image with data hidden inside of the file. Which of the following would describe this data storage? Is it hashing, steganography, quantum computing, asymmetric, or blockchain? We have 90% of you that say steganography was the right answer, and then single digits for everything else. Now, if you've ever gotten into understanding steganography, it's pretty impressive. This is steganography, where you might have the most common type of steganography is an image, and you're hiding information inside of the image. Really a unique thing, because you can change just a little bit of information inside of that very large image file. It doesn't really change the image so much, but it does allow you to embed data inside of it. You can do the same thing on a network. You can have network steganography where you're hiding information within other packets. Image is probably the easiest way to do it. If you look closely, this has some watermarks on it. This is the bottom of a color laser printer, and you can see there's little yellow dots. And the location of those dots provides information about what printer this was printed on. So this allows somebody to take a piece of paper they've received. They can look at the bottom, find the little dots that are at the bottom of that page, and they'll have serial number information about that printer, which might help if you're in a security situation. Let me invert that image. You can see the dots a little bit better, and those blue dots are inverted. Kind of give you a feel for this. That is steganography, and it's commonly used to get around firewalls, to get around people looking for data in plain sight. If you wanted to send information to somebody in a hidden form, steganography would allow you to do that. That is the correct option. It would not be hashing. Hashing is an algorithm that creates a fingerprint of a particular image, file, or piece of data. That fingerprint can be compared on both ends to make sure that the data has not changed. Would not be hashing. That doesn't hide information within a file. We've got quantum computing, which is a fantastic way of doing certain types of calculations, but it doesn't hide data within a file. That's not what kind of quantum computing is designed for. Asymmetric is a type of encryption where the encryption key and the decryption key are different. They are not symmetric, they are asymmetric. So that is not a case where data is hidden inside of a file. And blockchain, which is a way to have a ledger that can keep track of certain events. Blockchains, very commonly used for things like cryptocurrency, are very useful for monitoring and having everyone participate in this ledger, but it doesn't hide information within a file. That's not what blockchain does. The only answer here, the one that makes the most sense, is steganography. Answer B, and 90% of you got that one absolutely right. I'm sort of rushing through this one because I want to get one more question. I know we're at the top of the hour. We're going to do another one, though. Let's slide through this last question before I start taking questions from the chat room. This question asks, which secure protocol would be the best choice for a site-to-site VPN? Would that be DNSSEC, LDAP-S, IPsec, SFTP, or SNMP-v3? So these are the 5 choices. Which secure protocol would be the best choice for a site-to-site VPN? Is it DNSSEC, LDAP-S, IPsec, SFTP, or SNMP-v3? If you think you know the answer, please don't answer in the chat room. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Be able to put it in there. Yeah, this concept of steganography is a good one. The receiver of the message has to know that you have put information in the message in a particular way and has to know the way to get it out of the message a particular way. There are many utilities you can use to embed data inside of an image. You could even encrypt that data, hide it in the image, and then the person who received the image can use that same utility to pull out the data and then effectively decrypt it to be able to see it. So the receiver and the sender and the receiver have to be in sync. They have to have already talked about, oh, you're going to send this in an image? Okay, how are you going to send it? What utility should we use? Is there a particular encryption key we should use? That type of thing should be set up beforehand. And then everybody else just sees an image go by. But the two endpoints, they know how to get data out of that image because they've already talked about how they're going to do it. So they would be working in conjunction with each other to be able to make that happen. This question is a little more direct. It's more of a definitional question. You don't really get a lot of trivia questions like this on the exam, but I thought it would take you through a number of secure protocols and see if you remember some of those secure protocols. This is very useful to know. All of these are all real protocols to know. They are all listed in the CompTIA exam objectives. Make sure you're familiar with all of them. The question asks, which secure protocol would be the best choice for a site-to-site VPN? Would that be DNSSEC, LDAP-S, IPsec, SFTP, or SNMP v3? And you can see that 77% of you are working from home over an IPsec tunnel, maybe from a remote site. 77% did indeed say IPsec, and that is the right answer. 8% said DNSSEC, which is a secure form of DNS queries. This is becoming more common these days, finding ways to secure what you are querying on a DNS server. And there's a number of different standards people are working through right now to be able to find the best way to make that work. SFTP is a way to have a secure file transfer protocol. Great for transferring files, not very good for site-to-site virtual private networks, however. We've got 5% of you said LDAP-S. The Lightweight Directory Access Protocol is a database that you would access across the network. Doesn't really help you with site-to-site VPNs, though. And lastly, 3% of you said the Simple Network Management Protocol version 3, SNMP v3, which is a secure protocol. It does provide encryption. It is a way to make sure that you are able to encrypt data and get the information securely between yourself and the remote device, but it doesn't help for site-to-site VPNs. The best choice of this list by far is IPsec. It's one of the most common forms of site-to-site VPN communication that you will find. It's just sort of the default, and it's so interoperable. It works across many different types of systems, operating systems, firewalls, and other devices, and even across different manufacturers' devices. Because it's so open, you can plug in practically any two devices that talk IPsec, can send data back and forth. A very common way to have site-to-site encrypted communication using a virtual private network. Answer C, IPsec, is the right answer. Well done. That's the way you do it. IPsec. Make sure you know all of those secure protocols. There's even more on the website with the exam objectives. Make sure you're familiar with what those are. Something to know. All of this is in the exam objectives. If you don't have the objectives, you are missing out. This tells you everything you need to know to pass this exam. That's how valuable this document is, and it's free. I have a link to the objectives at professormesser.com/objectives. So that is where you should go to be able to find all of the objectives, know details about what you need to learn, understand exactly what will be asked of you on the exam. People often say, what secure protocols do I need to know? Well, they list them, and they stick to that list. They don't go outside the scope of that list. I'm constantly seeing Security Plus study materials that go outside the scope of the exam objectives. I have no idea why they do that, because they're not going to be asked on the exam, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. If you're studying for the exam, stick to the exam objectives. It seems like that's how you should do it, but that's one of those weird things, I guess, that we certainly run into. If you are wanting to participate live on our study groups, maybe you're watching this on a replay and you would like to join us for one of these live events where we can talk back and forth in the chat room and go through this Q&A. We do these all the time. You can go to professormesser.com/calendar. That's the link right there at the bottom of the screen. That takes you to the latest event calendar, so you'll know even a year from now when our next event is going to be. However, if you're here in October of 2021, we do one of these every month. Our next Security Plus study group will be on Wednesday, November the 17th, I think. I always say that I plan to do it on Wednesday, November 17th. Sometimes my world changes, and so I have to move these things around. But I always move it in my calendar first thing. So if you're checking professormesser.com/calendar, you have the most up-to-date information. The instant I have to make a change, I make it in the calendar the first thing I do. So you'll know exactly when the next event is going to be. Sometimes they do move around. This month, you'll notice we kind of moved everything up. Here we are on the 27th of October, but I thought if I pushed it into the 24th of November, we're right next to Thanksgiving here in the United States. That's not going to work very well. That's a national holiday. So we moved it up to be the 17th. We'd love to have you come back for that one as well. They're pretty good. That's a fun one to go to. As you've probably seen, just from this single study group, there is a ton of information in the exam. I have taken all of the details from all of my videos and put them into a set of course notes. This is a 121-page course note. These are notes. This is not a book. It has similar content that you would find. It doesn't replace your book. It doesn't replace the videos, but it's a great way to have everything at your fingertips. All of the charts, all of the graphs, all of the tables, all of the text, everything that's in my videos, I have in these course notes. They are extensive. They're, I think, relatively attractive, easy to find. They have a table of contents. You're able to search through these and do a Control F and find exactly what you're looking for. It's all in the course notes. It's also another great way to support the site. And as always, there are both digital and physical versions of the course notes. You can see full color book, high quality. This is what you would expect from ProfessorMesser.com, right? Something I'm not going to give you just horrible stuff. And if you get the physical version, you get the digital version for free. Same thing as usual. It's nice to have the copy of those. You can find it at professormesser.com/601cn, 601 course notes. 121 pages, really. Lots of content there and a great way to support the site. And if you buy the notes and the practice exams together, you get a little bit of a discount. So another thing to consider if you're trying to find all the resources you need for your Security Plus exam. Well, we're finished with our Q&A part where I ask the questions, but we have an entire after show where you ask the questions. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. We also, of course, have our weekly Security Plus pop quiz question. You can find that on Twitter at professormesser.com/Twitter. Also on professormesser.com/Instagram. Same question, but on Instagram it comes with a pretty picture. We also have all of our videos on YouTube, professormesser.com/YouTube. Nothing to register, nothing to buy. You can watch every minute of every video of the entire Security Plus course. Also, don't forget about your voucher discounts at professormesser.com/vouchers. Get a free copy of my Exam Hacks ebook with every purchase and my course notes and practice exams on the website, professormesser.com/securitycn. Well, thanks for being here. Stick around for the after show. We've got plenty more Q&A. You're going to ask all of this to be able to get to what we're doing on the website. We'll talk about what we've gone through and the questions you have in just a moment. Thanks for being here. And we'll see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Well, now I need to get myself back in frame. There we go. Well, we don't need the QA anymore. We just did that. For those of you asking about the books, you get the digital version immediately after purchase. So the instant you purchase the books, even if you're getting the physical version, you can download the digital version right away. So why would there be a delay? Just download it right away and get it. I don't sell them on Amazon. They're not available on Amazon. My books, none of my books or training materials are available on Amazon. They are available directly from the Professor Messer website. I do ship anywhere in the world. International shipping it's kind of expensive, but at least there's the option for that. We have looked at using Amazon. It just is not the right fit for us for what we do. Maybe in the future it will be, but not at the moment. Link to all my books are available on my website. Just go to the menu selection that you would like to pull from. In fact, I'll bring up my website so you can, I don't know why I'm telling you. I could just show you, right? So here's the Professor Messer website. At the top of the page are all of the courses: Core 1A+, Core 2A+, N10 007 Network Plus, N10 008 Network Plus, Security Plus. And in Security Plus, you've got my course notes, my practice exams, my downloadable videos, study group replays, the Take 10 challenges with the performance-based questions, and my study recommendations, all there on the Professor Messer website under the menus right there at the top of the page. You can also find them near the bottom of the page in the links that are here as well. So if you don't like messing with those menus or they're just not working right for you, you can find it right there on the page as well. Chris in the chat room with a $5 super chat. Chris says, now that I'm certified, my biggest challenge is finding out where the entry-level security jobs are. That is a challenge, by the way. That is a pretty significant challenge because there's not a lot of entry-level security jobs. There are many security jobs that are medium and high-level security jobs, but IT security effectively means that you have some experience in operating systems, networking, and the security overlaid for all of those things. So if that's the situation you're in, you will find that there's not a lot of entry level. Now, the difference, though, the place where you will find entry level security jobs is a security operations center. So if you are in a large metropolitan area, it's very likely that the large companies in your area have a security operations center, maybe in your city. And there are many entry-level positions in a SOC, Security Operations Center. These SOCs are great places to get into security at entry level, and then you can kind of really figure out what options are available to you. I have also seen entry-level jobs available with military and Department of Defense contracts as well. Those are kind of specific to particular geographies, but I have seen them. And there are entry-level security jobs other places. I'm not saying they don't exist, but compared to broad general IT positions like help desk, which is where most organizations start people in IT, they start them on the help desk. So also you may consider that you want to get into security, but to get into security, you need some foundational knowledge in operating systems, in networking, and in security. Why not start at the operating system side? Why not move into the networking side? Why not build these skills through the years that will eventually get you into a very high-paying and high-level position in security? So if you can find an entry level in security, like John in the chat room said, got an entry-level gig in security and compliance, and he says, I am very fortunate to have found this opportunity. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And it's good that you realize that there are not a lot of them out there. So make sure you go hunt them down and figure out. It's a time, if you're really looking to get into security at an entry level, you need to do your research. This isn't one where you're just going to scan around some of the job postings out there and try to find this job. You need to do deep dives, heavy, detailed analysis, really do your research into all of these positions. It's going to be pretty important to be able to do that. So I tell people, make sure you are use every possible thing available to you. Do you have friends? Does your family have friends? Does your parents know somebody? Do you know somebody from a different job you worked at before? Is there anyone? Just ask everyone. Hey, do you know anybody who works in security and IT security? I'm looking for a job. Ask everybody you know. If you have a LinkedIn, use your LinkedIn. If you attend a Cisco user group, if you attend a Microsoft user group, ask the people in those user groups. It's a great way to meet people. It's a great way to find jobs. You should be doing that already to make those happen. For people asking about the Success Bundle, I don't currently offer a physical edition success bundle for Security Plus. I hope to have one up in the next couple of weeks. At that time, it will be a success bundle that provides flash drive and physical books. But at the moment, I just have the physical books available. But if you get the digital success bundle and you want to add on physical books, I can do that for you. And I'll give you a discount based on the digital version you've already paid. So you're not paying full price again. You'll get a discount for the digital piece, and then you only have to pay the difference in the physical upgrade, which is kind of nice. So just send me a message through the Contact Us link or open a ticket, a help desk ticket on your member login, which is probably the best way to get my attention. And certainly the priority goes to my help desk tickets that come through. So I'll be glad to do that. On the Security Plus page, I'll show you for the course notes, for example, it brings up the page for the entire success bundle. You have an option of the things that you can get. So, oh, look at that guy. Hey, buddy, how you doing? So you'll notice that all of these are digital products. There's a little tab at the top for physical edition book, and there's the physical edition of those. So you can see what those different options are, and you can flip between both of those. So some people do buy the digital edition and later, well, I'd really like to get the book. Can I just pay the difference? Absolutely. You can pay the difference and get the physical book. There's no reason to pay twice for the digital version. It's an easy way to do it. In this after show, we are taking questions from you. Now, normally we would have the phone lines going, but in this particular study group, we're going to take questions from the chat room directly. So this would be a great place to go if you are or you would like to throw out a question to be able to put them into the chat. You can find it at professormesser.com/live, or if you're on YouTube, it's exactly the same YouTube chat that you're at. It's the same chat in both places. So it's a great way to ask questions. You can find that at professormesser.com/live. We'll put questions right in the chat room on YouTube. So good example, John says, I want to pay the difference for the Network Plus course notes I received a couple of days ago. How do you do that? Open up a help desk ticket or send me a note with the Contact Us saying, hey, I bought the digital last week. I want to now upgrade to the physical version, and I will send you a coupon that will discount the physical purchase, and we'll get the physical one right out to you. Easy. It's easy to do. It takes me just a few minutes to do it. I'm more than happy to make that happen, to have all of those. Can I explain edge and fog computing? I sure can. You know, if you look at what we are doing with data these days, it is remarkable. There's so much data out there. We have an entire subgroup of technology that we have created around data. Now, it used to be that we didn't do a ton of data analysis in the things that we did because there wasn't that much data. It was expensive to store data. Having a hard drive used to be a luxury. Now we have SSDs. We don't even have hard drives in our own personal systems. And the hard drives that we have are enormous. We can store terabytes, exabytes, zettabytes of data on these storage arrays now reasonably inexpensively. It's so inexpensive to store data these days, which means that we are storing more data. We are storing tons of data and need to analyze this data. In fact, we have so much data that we have too much data. If you've ever seen all this data that we've been trying to throw up into the cloud, it's almost ridiculous how much is there. So we're having to make decisions now about what data we put where based on what we want to do with it. So this is primarily being driven by Internet of Things, but it can be driven by other things as well. I look at Internet of Things, and although a lot of what you see on this screen are sort of the higher level IoT devices, energy, manufacturing, cars, you know, all of those fit into that IoT. There's all kinds of sensors and equipment and IoT data that's being collected. But let's take, for example, a car, which I think is a really good way to understand the difference between data on our devices, the fog of data is what we're calling it, which is really just a midpoint of data storage and data extraction, and then the cloud itself, which is at the very top. Calling it a fog kind of seems to give us the idea of it's not the cloud and it's not you, it's kind of in the middle. And what's in the middle between you and the clouds? Sometimes it's the fog. That's where that term comes from. But think about the data you have in your car. There's tons of sensors. There's sensors on the brakes. There's sensors on the wheels. There's sensors inside of the wheel for air. You've got acceleration sensors. You've got braking sensors. You've got heating, cooling. You've got all kinds of sensors. There are hundreds of sensors inside of your car. Do all of that data that's being collected in real time doesn't all need to go up to one central cloud facility. But it would be nice if your oil got low, that a message would be sent to the cloud to send you a message on your phone saying your oil is low. So that's a good example of data that would be in your car with the Internet of Things that you would send into the cloud, is that oil light. Now, as you're driving down the road and it's raining and something jumps out in front of you, you hit the brakes, you'll notice that your anti-lock braking will kick in so that you don't skid all over the place. You slow down while you're in control, and then the thing runs by and you can keep going. So when that happened, a billion different data points got created. Sensors started going off. Data points were created. There was tons of calculations happening in your car. All that was happening local in your car. And that amazing amount of data that was created during that event doesn't really need to be pushed up into the cloud. Nobody really else needs to see that. That all happens in your car. So we're going to keep that local. But wouldn't it be nice if you could get kind of a summary of what just happened there on this last trip? How many times did I hit the brakes? How many times did the anti-lock brakes show up? So we could put that into kind of a midpoint where we're not putting all of the data from our car up into the cloud, but maybe we're putting some of it into the cloud that we can then do a few calculations and maybe push it back down to the car so that we can get a message on our screen or a message on our phone. Or maybe we do these calculations and we push up the results of that into the cloud so you get the message on your phone. So you can think of it as a midpoint that's outside the scope of your car, but it would give you a place to start calculating data that you can do in a relatively fast, relatively close to you so that you have quick access to the data, but it doesn't fill up the cloud with unnecessary data. Can you imagine sending every time you hit your anti-lock brakes? Can you imagine sending all of that anti-lock brake data into the cloud? Why would you do that? It's completely unnecessary. So it's sort of a broad term to describe this architecture of splitting the data up and putting it where it makes the most sense. It's kind of a weird term to use, the fog, really? That doesn't even, It sounds like you don't know what's going on, that you're in a fog. That's not what it means. It just means it's a midpoint between you and the cloud. That's all it's really talking about. So if you're in the case where you're trying to break this out and figure out, where's my data go? Does it go in the cloud? In the cloud, does it not know what it's doing? That's not the case. It's just a midpoint. We could have called it probably something better than having that, than the fog. We've always used fog differently depending on what it is anyway. To have all of those pieces there, it would be nice to have a breakdown of that. And we are seeing, as people are mentioning in the chat room, other people are taking advantage of some of this data that's being pushed into the fog and being pushed into the cloud, like our insurance companies. You've probably seen insurance companies that put a sensor in your car. Maybe that's a fog type device. Maybe that is taking a summary of data from your car, doing its own calculations, and then that is, even though it's physically located in the car with you, that's a bit of foggy data in the midpoint where it doesn't go all the way up to the cloud, but it's being used. A summary of the data is being used that you've created and is now being calculated in that car sensor. I'm glad they don't have a car sensor in my car. I don't have one. I don't have one of those for my insurance. I don't have one of those. There was a fog. Isn't there a horror movie, The Fog? I'm pretty sure that if there isn't, there needs to be one. It would be the computer with the data. It's coming to get you. It's coming to raise your insurance rates. Oh, it's horrible. Nobody would watch that movie. Until, of course, the insurance person showed up. It would just be another bad State Farm commercial. The idea of this architecture of breaking data out this way is only the beginning. We really are only at the beginning part of this. So if you're someone who is trying to get into data, if you're really good with data, you're really good with math, you're really good with manipulating data and managing databases and how you would query this information, if you think in those terms, a type of data career might be for you. You may have seen recently that CompTIA introduced the Data Plus certification for that very reason. So it's a good example of that. We're taking questions from the chat room today. If you have a question, feel free to put it into the chat room at professormesser.com/live, or if you're on YouTube, it's the YouTube chat. It's the same chat, just on the YouTube side. So feel free to put any questions in there. I'm going to scroll up a little bit. A good question here. How are medical devices, such as pacemakers that are in our bodies, how are they secured from hackers? Well, from a pacemaker perspective, I have a little perspective of that one because I have some knowledge of the pacemaker type equipment, which is you have to be really close to you to put the sensor right on the pacemaker. So it really is a PAN, a personal area network type scenario, using a very simplified method to be able to communicate back and forth to the pacemaker. We have not, at this point, probably never, connected pacemakers to our 802.11 wireless networks, thankfully. That's nothing I think we're going to be able to do. That's one of the big concerns we have, obviously, with healthcare, is keeping our data private and making sure that nobody has access to these systems to be able to manipulate what these devices are doing. Could you imagine getting into somebody's healthcare equipment? They're at a hospital. They've got all kinds of IVs in their arms. They're on a breathing machine, whatever it might be, and somebody's able to manipulate what's going on. Now, that's an issue. So we always worry about what we're going to do with healthcare, and that's an absolute concern. As with any IoT type device, if you don't yet in your house have a separate IoT wireless network, then you're probably not as secure as you should be. This is something I think everybody needs to do, is if you are putting into your house a garage door opener, an internet connected streaming audio service, an internet connected phone or door lock unlock system, even the lighting systems in your house, those all need to be on their own network. Many wireless access points and home routers allow you to configure a guest network. And the guest network is one that has the same functionality as your existing network, but it is segmented off. The guest network can't talk to your internal network. Your internal network can't talk to the guest network. That is a very secure way to implement Internet of Things devices, IoT. So the way I've done it in my house is my guest network is literally called IoT, and I have set up passwords for that network. It is secure. There's at least encrypted communication over the wireless network, but it's on a completely separate network than my laptop, than my family's computers, than my mobile phones. All of my personal data is on a completely different, completely isolated network than my Internet of Things devices. Why is that important, though? Why do we stress all the time that we want to keep IoT devices separate? Well, the primary reason is that companies that make garage door openers have not traditionally been companies that knew anything about putting devices on a network. Same thing applies. Companies that make doors, locks for doors, are really good at making locks for doors. They maybe not as well honed, not as well read when it comes to IT security. Devices, people that make streaming audio services, not necessarily the most knowledgeable in IT security. And as we have found, these devices have become very big points for hackers and people trying to gain access into your network to be able to take advantage of vulnerabilities and ways into that device. So if you happen to, and this has happened, if you happen to be on the internet and you get access to someone's temperature controls in their house, This is a real problem that has happened in the past. They effectively got root access to the temperature control, and from there could jump to any device that was in your network or on the same network as that temperature control. I would like to avoid this. So to avoid it, all my temperature controls are on their own IoT network, along with I have garage door openers. They're on their own IoT network. Now, of course, I don't like that someone would be able to hack into temperature controls. They can maybe turn the temperature up and down, but that would be as bad as it would get. They would be able to manipulate the controlling of the temperatures in my house, and maybe in some ways they could tell when I'm home and when I'm not home, but they would not be able to gain access to my personal systems and potentially gain access to my personal data. So that's the real key, is keeping IoT separate so that we are limiting the scope of a potential breach. I think potential breach is probably even being conservative. When these devices get breached, it would limit how much they would be able to get access to. So that's why I always say, let's not do that. Also, another question in the chat room. If we are certified in Network Plus N10007, should we be concerned with getting certified with the N10008 test as well? Well, let's talk about these numbers and these tests and the certification. When you take an exam and you get certified, you are Network Plus certified. You are Security Plus certified. You are A Plus certified. You are not qualified with a particular version number of A Plus, Network Plus, or Security Plus. You are simply Network Plus certified. If you happen to take the N10007 exam to earn your Network Plus certification, you're Network Plus certified. You're not N10007 Network Plus certified. There is no such thing. The N10007 just happened to be the version of the exam you took that then allowed you to be Network Plus certified. If you take the N10008 exam, which you could take the N10008 right now if you wanted to and pass it. If you pass it, you're in the same certification. You literally gain nothing. They give you nothing extra. It's not qualified as being N10008 because that's the exam you took. All you are is Network Plus certified. Maybe now you've moved your certification retirement date up a month because you did that. Although it says version 2021, that's not referring on your certification. You'll notice it will say version 2021. It's not really a version number. It's only when you took the exam. I know it says version, and it probably is a bad term for them to have used because it means nothing about a version of anything. All it means is you took it in 2021. That's it, and passed it in 2021. That's all it means. It really isn't a version number, unfortunately. It's a weird term to put on the cert because maybe at one time they were thinking of putting a version number on it, but there isn't one. So it doesn't help. Having that on your certification doesn't help at all. There is no version of your exam. You are either Network Plus certified or you are not Network Plus certified. That's it. Those are your only two choices. And if you are Network Plus certified, that's it. You're Network Plus certified. You could have taken your N10004 or 5 or 6. And as long as you've been renewing through the years, you're still Network Plus certified. So that's why I say to people, don't worry about which version of the exam you're taking. Nobody cares. The only thing they care is if you passed it. Then you get to call yourself Security Plus certified, Network Plus certified, that type of thing. So those are things to think about for this. Also in the chat room, CYSA asks, any plans to do tutorials on intermediate to advanced certifications, such as CSSP, CISM, CISSP, CCNA Security? I mean, there's tons that people talk about. I want to be able to do some additional certifications on my site. Right now, we're finishing up the latest Network Plus. That's almost done. Released 6 videos this week already and shot another 5. And there's more coming this week. So we're excited about finishing up that course. Or later in the year or beginning of next year, there will be a new A+ course. So that's effectively 2 separate courses, the Core 1 and the Core 2. So there will be 2 courses created at the beginning of the year, and I will absolutely have new A+ for you when that happens. Then there will be kind of a gap. There'll be this 1.5 to 2 year gap where there will not be a new A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus, because we've just updated all 3 of those. So now I get to pick a new one. Let's pick a new certification. What's it going to be? And I'd love to get feedback. I love the idea of doing some Cisco CCNA just because I love networking. It'd be fun to do. I'd love to do some cloud certifications, either AWS because they have the market share, or Azure. They're coming up strong. I'd love to do maybe some other types. Maybe a Red Hat would be fun for some Linux knowledge. I'm really not leaning, for those of you mentioning pen test, it's on a list, but it's way down on the list. Pen test is. Pen test just has such a narrow focus, has such a narrow niche in IT. I know it has a popularity, certainly. Pen testing has it has a romance to it. It's a romantic type. You get into IT security, so you're going to be that pen tester like they have in the movies. And we're going to do, but the percentage of pen testing jobs out there is so tiny. They're almost, compared to the rest of IT, there's almost no pen testing jobs available in comparison. I'm talking in relative terms here. There are so few pen testing jobs out there that I just have not been able to justify it. Would it be exciting to do and fun and sexy? And yeah, it would be, because pen testing is that way. But there's got to be a practical use to it for me to do this. The reason, sort of the background for those of you that have not been here before, have not really followed what we've done, is our focus with Professor Messer is to build free materials that people can use to get a job or get a better job. That is, for lack of a formal mission statement, that's my mission statement. I want you to get a job or get a better job. And pen test, it would help people get a job or get a better job, but only this many people, like a small number of people. Well, that doesn't quite fit our goal. We want a lot of people to get a job or get a better job. So that's why I kind of mentioned broader topics like CCNA, like AWS certifications, like Microsoft certifications, like to some degree Red Hat or Linux. That has its own challenges, which is why it's probably not at the top of my list either. But there's so many people that I think need Linux knowledge. That would be really good. CEH and pen test, both are security. Neither of those are huge. Neither of those are big, unfortunately. That's the real challenge. It seems like pen test would be much bigger. It would be not bigger in its popularity, but bigger in its what it provides. But it doesn't. It doesn't provide you with much once you have it. Relative to all of those other things I just mentioned. This is all relative, right? If it was up to me, I'd do all of them. I would make every certification course for all of these topics. I think it would be great. So I think that's whenever I start going through this. That's why I try to, at least from my perspective, try to focus on those topics. To some degree, same thing from the perspective of CYSA. You know, it's a little more specific to security, and I want to go broader. I want more people to have access to this information and be able to make other decisions about what they want to do in IT. So Server Plus maybe, Cloud Plus maybe, Linux Plus maybe less maybe. Linux is a popular topic. I think a lot of people would enjoy it. I've tried some Linux videos in the past, and I just wasn't quite happy with how they turned out. So even though I'm my own Linux administrator, I've been working with Unix and Linux for the most of my career. But I just don't know if it's a good fit for this. We'll have to figure it out. The CEH, the Certified Ethical Hacker, and I think I've said this in the past, my plan to create Certified Ethical Hacker content would be never. I am never going to create Certified Ethical Hacker content. And by never, I don't mean never. I mean never. I'm never creating content for that certification. There's lots of reasons for it, but all you have to do is go look at the number of times they've been breached and how many times people's private information has been released after having taken the CEH. And just a number of things sort of on the street, word on the street, and people, we talk amongst each other sometimes in the content creation certification group amongst ourselves. And we know what certifications tend to have a better street cred than others. And CEH just does not do it. It's really kind of a shame because the content of CEH is pretty good, but the organization that manages it, I'm just not happy with. It's just not a good fit. Maybe it's a better fit for other people, but not here. So I'm not going to do any CEH. Sorry. So sorry. Not going to happen from that perspective. But it's an interesting thing to think about anyway. If anyone ever has thoughts, ideas, comments, places where they think I should be looking, tell me. I'll go that direction. We'll kind of go down a road of trying to figure those things out. I certainly put it on a list, and this list is constantly changing. I really don't talk directly to any other content creators. No, we're all kind of busy anyway. But there are posts, and occasionally I will talk to other people in the industry that are not directly making content, but they talk to other people who are making content. So it's one of those situations. So it's not that CEH is an inherently bad cert to get, because there are a number of employers that would like you to have it. I'm just not, I have a very particular set of quality goals that I want to associate myself with. I think the goal of creating content should be to create the highest quality content possible. I don't think there's a philosophy in certification content creation that if you just make it good enough, okay, maybe you go outside the scope of the exam objectives, and maybe the grammar isn't as great as it could be, and maybe there's a couple spelling errors, but it's good enough, and we'll sell it. Well, that's not me. That's not my philosophy. My philosophy is to create the highest quality possible, something that will help you get the job, and then you use something of high quality, you'll come back and get other things that are of high quality. That's my philosophy, is to make it as good as possible. And I just don't think that the CEH fits that particular philosophy very well. There we go. And if you're wondering, go out and do some Googling. Google CEH Snowden. There you go. That's all you need to do. That's what turned me around. If you take a certification exam, you would hope that your personal information would not somehow appear on the internet for everyone to be able to access. Unfortunately, that's not the case with the CEH historically. Maybe it's better now, but that's all I need. That's the idea anyway, is I always like to associate myself with organizations that have the same perspective of high quality that I do. There you go. So that's the perspective I bring, or I hope to bring to this. So there's a little inside baseball for you. So that's my approach to this. That's why you'll notice on my site, and there's not a lot of partnerships I do. I don't have a lot of places where you see me popping up on somebody else's website talking about their products. I don't do any, for the most part, I don't do any third-party qualification of anybody's products. The only ones that I currently can say these are really good are the ones from CompTIA, because I know the people that created them. Some of you that go way back with me know that I used to work with a company called GTS Learning that just created amazing books and other content as well. But they didn't have any video, so we partnered together, and I did some video stuff, and they did the books, and we integrated the things together. It was really phenomenal. But then they got purchased by CompTIA. Well, those people that made that content now work at CompTIA, and they're making really good content these days. Their Cert Master Practice, their Cert Master Learn, their Cert Master Labs, really good stuff. I did a video on all of these. If you go look at the recommended products, they're on my website as recommended products. But that's really it. I don't go out to other third parties, and I talk to people all the time. They said, hey, do you want to get together? Do you want to do a partnership? And I just don't. Nope. No, thank you. We're good. Maybe that will change in the future once I have a chance to kind of catch my breath after doing A+. We look around at some other things. If I like it, then I can get on board, but nobody's really gotten to the point where I like it. There's always a concern too, when you start doing that kind of thing. There's a lot of business questions there, but now we're getting into more of an entrepreneurial conversation, and that's not what we're here for. But if you want to get into that type of conversation, I'm more than happy to do that for what you're doing. Is it worth getting other entry-level security certifications after Security Plus? Well, there are not a lot of other entry-level security certifications, but there are a number of very good security certifications out there that are sort of mid-level. But the real question is, should you be getting those certifications? Should you be working on your CASP? Should you be working on pen test? Should you be working on these higher level Security Plus certs? Well, if you've never gotten into IT, if you don't have a job in IT yet, you may be overreaching just a little bit. Are employers asking for those certifications is my first question to you. Do you have employers that say, we need to see a Security Plus, a CASP, and a CISSP, or whatever, I don't know, or CEH, maybe they'll throw that one in. Are people asking for that? Because generally they don't. Generally, if you're talking about entry-level positions, first, there's very few security entry-level positions. We've already talked about that. But usually they're looking for a broad approach. They want you to have knowledge that you would have similar to A+, or Network Plus, or in the case of the federal government in the U.S., Security Plus. If you're outside the scope of the federal government, you almost don't see Security Plus as the first thing they ask for. Have you noticed that? So it's different depending on where you are in the country. If you're in Virginia, if you're in Maryland, if you're in that DC area, Security Plus may be the first thing that comes up. In fact, they may ask for other things security related. But if you're in Dallas, if you're in Minneapolis, if you're in Chicago, if you're in LA, probably a completely different approach. Probably more A+, Network Plus. So go see what the employers are doing. I have a video, and I think I put the video in the YouTube video description. That is how to get a job in IT with no experience. And in that video, I talk about the process you should be going through to figure out what you should get for certifications. And it involves you doing some research, creating a spreadsheet, going out to your favorite job posting site, going out to Indeed, LinkedIn Jobs, going out to your favorite, whatever those, dice.com, whatever it is, find whatever the ones that are popular in your area, and see what employers who are hiring in your area are asking for. Do they want a formal education? Do they want certifications? What type of certifications are they asking for? Do they want any specific skills that maybe you're not certified on, but maybe they want you to have knowledge in Active Directory. Maybe they want you to have knowledge in Cisco switches. Maybe something they ask about, but don't necessarily need you to be certified in it. Those are things you should be writing down and making a list. And then once you do that, you've got 10 or 15 jobs there. Is there anything that's a common theme? Are people always asking for A+? Wow, like 9 out of 10 of these ask for an A+. I don't have an A+. There's your answer. You should go get your A+. Or you look at it, 9 out of 10 of these asked for Security Plus. Okay, that's the one you need to go get. But until you do the work, until you do the research, you're not going to know. And that's why in that same video, I talk about doing some practical experience in your home lab. This came up just before we finished the main part of the study group, kind of circling back to some of these questions that were asked earlier. Having a home lab can be so helpful when you're in an interview because now you have a story to tell. And if you've never set up Internet of Things device, if you've never configured a Microsoft server with Active Directory, if you've never set up a switch or set up multiple switches and connected some of these things together, maybe just in your house, you connected multiple access points, connected them together so that you could extend the wireless signal in your home. That's a great lab. Maybe you set up on a machine a firewall and an IPS, and you connected it to your actual internet link just to see what it would say. There's a whole 15, 20 minutes of a story you can tell about that one. Not only of the struggles you had in setting it up, because you will struggle with certain aspects of setting up these things. I guarantee you, if you are going out to Microsoft, you download the evaluation version of Microsoft Server, you run it in a VM, and you want to integrate it into your own Active Directory infrastructure as if you were your own company, you're going to run into some problems. I guarantee you DNS is going to be an issue, because it always is. So these types of problems you have, you should do it so that you can figure out what you did wrong, you can correct it, and now you have an answer when they say, tell us about a time when you ran into a problem and you resolved it. Tell us about that experience. Now you can talk about all of the things that you did to get Windows Server up and running, how DNS was the bane of your existence, and then suddenly you figured it out. And now everything runs like a champ. And now you're running Active Directory. Now you've got all these services running. And now you've got your own DHCP and your own Active Directory and your own Windows Server, and you've got a web service running on it. You're doing everything on this Windows Server. You know, that's a great story. Same thing for networking. Maybe you set up your own pfSense firewall. Maybe you set up an untangled firewall. If you don't know what those terms are, that's a place to start. That's a great, if you've never heard of those, fantastic, because now you got stuff to learn. So go out and take those, download them, install them, run your actual data through them, and you will be amazed at what you would see go in and out of your internet connection. In fact, that's the story. When somebody says, tell us about something you've set up in the lab. Oh, let me tell you about this firewall I set up and what I found. And then you can tell them the whole story of how you got it running, what you ran it on. Did you run it on its own system? Did you put it in a VM? How'd you connect it up to your network? And then what did it find? What reports did you find? What applications were running you had no idea was on your network? What were people trying to attack you with from the outside? It's all in this firewall log. So why not build that in your house on your own time? There's no pressure. But now you've got a story. Now you have something that you can converse with somebody, and perhaps more importantly, they can see the process you went through to troubleshoot these, and they understand that you have an interest in this technology, which is perhaps important as well. I think one of the things that I always tell people is these stories, you should be talking the whole time during this interview. So those stories really make for an interesting conversation, because they'd have first, very few people walking in the door will have done what you did. And then you have a story with an ending. You have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You have the beginning where you tried to install it. You have the middle part where you were doing the troubleshooting. And then you have the end part where you can show them the results from that. That's a great conversation to have during an interview. And if you're not doing it, you're missing out on an opportunity. Plus, you can now put Active Directory on your resume. You can put firewall, pfSense firewall, untangled firewall, Snort IPS. You can put all these things on your resume, which of course show up on the counter that the automated HR system uses to parse out your resume. And suddenly they can see all the things you're doing. To that end, let me come back to that real quick, but I want to recognize Rami in the chat room with the $10 super chat. No message, just Rami being Rami. Thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you for the $10 super chat donation. It does go a long way to keeping the lights on, and it's also very encouraging. So it makes me go back and get more work done for you when that happens. So thanks so much. I talked about not having any experience and trying to get a job in IT. One common theme I've seen recently is people who are on LinkedIn specifically. And you can love LinkedIn, you can hate LinkedIn, but undoubtedly employers are there, recruiters are there. They're looking for people that are knowledgeable. And from my perspective, now that I've been on LinkedIn and I've sort of been in the industry for a little while, all my friends and contacts are there. So every time I need to ping somebody about something in the industry, I have an incredibly large, well-curated group of people that I can send information to. Now, my LinkedIn, on my personal LinkedIn, is only connected to people that I've personally worked with before. So I have a very tight group of, 500 people that I can, maybe not that many, that I can ping to see what's going on or ask questions about. I have, of course, the Professor Messer page on LinkedIn. That's a little different. But you should have a personal LinkedIn page. And as you are building out your Active Directory infrastructure, as you're downloading Active Directory, you're installing it, that is a great article to put on LinkedIn. And it doesn't have to be a big article. Just talked about what you did maybe in the first section. We're going to download and install this today. So here's the process I went through. Take some screenshots, put it out there. Because what you'll find is employers are going through your LinkedIn to learn more about you. Wow, look at all this techie stuff that they're putting out there. They installed Active Directory. Oh, they had a problem installing Active Directory. Oh, they fixed it. Now look at the Active Directory infrastructure they have. If you go back and look at my video course, it's still on YouTube, for Windows 7. It's the 70-680 Microsoft certification, which is no longer around. It's Windows 7. But when I did that video, I built an Active Directory infrastructure in a VM, and I built clients in separate VMs, and I connected them together. So I effectively had this virtual world of Active Directory, Microsoft Server, and Microsoft clients all running in this virtual world, connecting to each other and being managed through Active Directory. It's not easy to set up, but once you do it the first time, you get the hang of it. Like, oh, is that it? Okay, I got it. Now I can do this again. So you get those things running. If you could document that entire process and have it on LinkedIn, now you've got some documentation of how smart you are out there on LinkedIn. That's really what this is. You've gone through the process of building out this you've shown yourself going through the lab. And if an employer, you wanted to prove to an employer that you really did know how to manage Active Directory, because everybody says they do. You can't believe everybody. Like, everybody walking in the door is an Active Directory expert? Really? They all say they are, but are they really? Okay, if you're making the cut and they say, well, let's look at your LinkedIn. In fact, you can tell people, you should go onto my LinkedIn and you'll see all of the things I went through to get this running. Documented the whole thing. And you can see it all listed there and what I managed to do. That is proof of what you are saying. How is that proof? It's proof you're saying it. What is more proof than you being in front of somebody and saying it? It is. Having it as a third-party posting out on LinkedIn somehow proves what you already told them to their face. So it's this weird thing where we need some type of social proof, even though the original proof came directly from you. And of course, it'd be nice if some of your friends made comments there like, oh, that looks good, I should do this myself. And they, some people start chiming in with some of the things you've done. That would be great as well, but it's not required. Same thing for web servers. If you're somebody who would like to set up a web server, maybe you'd like, and it should be a reason you're setting it up. I'm setting up this web server to run this service. Maybe you want to monitor these devices inside of your network. There's a whole monitoring home lab you can do. Just getting LAMP running is hard enough, and then let's add other things to it. Maybe get WordPress running inside your house because you want to try adding content and see what it takes to get it running. How do you manage this on a Linux device versus Windows? All of these big companies have content management systems. So having some experience in a CMS can only help you. Rami in the chat room, $5 donation again, coming back in with $5 and said, okay, let me give you a message. I'll take it. Rami says, here's a message for you, sir. Thank you for the great insight, everything you're doing to help me and everyone. Hope I will get my Security Plus soon. Well, you're on the right track. You're doing the right things. You're focusing on the right pieces of information. It's just a matter of time now. And for some of us, we can run through the Security Plus content in a number of weeks. If you're already in the industry, it may be that Security Plus is just a minor thing that you can step through. For some of us, when we work on brand new content, sometimes it's taken me 6 months to go through a course, to go through and learn everything I needed to learn and prepare to take a certification exam. So not all of us can do it in a month. Some of us, like me, need 6 months. Our life is chaotic enough as it is. I get an hour at the end of the day. What am I going to do with that hour? Well, I could just sit in bed and go through this book. That's what we're going to do. We're just going to read the book every night before going to bed. And then sometimes I get an hour, sometimes I get 2 hours, sometimes I get 30 minutes. But I go through it as much as I can to be able to do this. Oh, good option, LogRhythm. And by the way, LogRhythm, not logarithm, but LogRhythm, one word, is a very good SIM. And they have, according to Stuart says they have a freemium Netmon VM. You can stand up to monitor your home network in minutes. Love it. Go do that. That's a great one to do. That's an afternoon, right? To go through and see what you can access on your network. I bet that pulling stuff from a printer can be interesting. I just did a video and posted a video this week, I think. It was on SNMP. I think I did that one on Monday. And the example, I used an SNMP Walker, which is a program that will just go through every possible SNMP OID, object ID, and it will put that information on the screen. It will pull the information for that OID and put it on the screen. So I just did a single device on my network, a laser printer. And it's amazing the thousands and thousands and thousands of data points inside of that laser printer. That's just one device and an innocuous device at that. It's just a printer sitting in the corner. Well, it's amazing the information that came out of that. Imagine getting SNMP stats from a server, from a switch, from your home router, from an IoT device. Maybe you're even able to access these devices using Telnet or SNMP, and you had no idea you were even using that. You had no idea it was even configured on that device. So those are things you can do, is go through and run little utilities like that. I think LogRhythm's a great one to use for that. There's some open source options out there. There's a lot of great subreddits on home automation and home monitoring where they use some of these open source products. Amazing options out there. Go look at them. Find the topics that interest you. If you find that Windows, Active Directory is not really my thing, no problem. Let's do something in Linux. Maybe pull up and run LogRhythm in Linux, or run LogRhythm. They have a Linux version? I think they do. But run one of these Linux open source products. Maybe get LAMP running and get a web server running and run a CMS in Linux. Maybe Mac OS is for you. And there's some Mac OS options out there to learn more. The many companies out there have Mac OS technologies, and you will hear people, and probably some of you are doing this, like, I hate Macs. I haven't used a lot of Macs. I don't really like Macs. Macs aren't my thing. No problem. We'll take the job that you won't take. That's how I approach these things. If somebody out there has a negative perspective of a particular technology, that should be your cue to jump into that technology. If it's so difficult to find people that can manage a Mac in an enterprise, you should become an expert at running a Mac in an enterprise, because it turns out there's some job openings out there for you. So that's why I tell people, anytime there is a technology people don't want to touch, and every company has these. They have that server in the corner. It was set up 5 years ago by some consultant. We don't know what runs on. We think it just runs on evil inside of it. We're not sure. We've never turned it off. There's a big sign on it that says "Do not reboot." You know what I'm talking about. Now, that is an operating system. It has an application running on it. There's nothing magic or unusual about that device. The problem is nobody knows what it is. And it's the fear of the unknown that limits people being able to support that device. To me, that's a perfect opportunity for you to document what that device is doing. You're able to get into the console. You can log into the device. What is it running? Is it running Windows? Is it running Linux? What is it running? Is it running an operating system? Is it running a service? Are there applications running? What is it? And actually, once you document it out, you realize, oh, it's just running this. That's all it's doing. It's running this thing. And maybe you're even able to talk back to the consultant. Hey, is this what you got running here? Okay. And then you become the expert. Now you are the de facto expert in the thing that nobody else wants to touch. Do you realize how valuable you become? It's really important that you look at technology as an opportunity. That especially the things other people don't want to touch, are an enormous opportunity. Now, certainly the very broad and well-used technologies are also opportunities. Active Directory, used everywhere. It will be good to know that technology. But sometimes these very unique and niche technologies can also be opportunities for you as well. And people in the chat room are going, oh, yeah, run this, run that, run the LogRhythm. Somebody else said, I'm a SIM admin for LogRhythm. Love it. Other people say setting up an Elk stack is a free Linux SIM with Elasticsearch. Awesome. GitLab server. That would be a good one. So you understand version control, especially if you're managing these servers and managing people who are developing. LDAP AD, good one to learn. LDAP especially. Active Directory is good, but can you integrate into the Active Directory? One of the most common ways to integrate into Active Directory is using LDAP. So that's why sometimes we'll mention that a company will build all their authentication into Active Directory, but then they need to log in and connect to their VPN, and their VPN concentrator talks to the Active Directory server via LDAP to authenticate usernames and passwords. So another common way to do that. Wow, a bunch of super chats coming in. Let me thank these people real quick. The AED, I don't know, what is an AED currency? I don't know that one offhand. I've got to figure that out. Abubakar, I think I got that right. With the $10 AED super chat, with a thank you, Professor Messer, and I thank you right back at you. Thank you so much for the 10 thing super chat. I don't know what the chat room's smarter than I am, so they're going to tell me what an AED is. Oh, it's the UAE. Okay, so it's the UAE currency. Thank you for that AED super chat. Sure appreciate it. CPA Marketing Academy for $9.99. Am I planning to create success bundles for other certifications? I am. I want to build out. The success bundle has been a success. It's been something that people have really been able to use. They say, okay, this is good. Everything's in there. Everything is contained. So why not do it for everything else? So you see it currently for A+ Core 1, A+ Core 2. Mostly Network Plus. You got it for Security Plus. I'm going to update the Network Plus so it also has a practice exams in that. That would be a good one. But I'd love to do everything I'm going to do, whatever that next course is going to be, we'll also have a success bundle. There will be course notes. There will be practice exams. There will be videos. There will be audio, the whole thing. We're just going to keep doing that. It's a good model that people seem to like. So I try to add other things to it, but so far it's worked pretty well. But there are other certifications I'm planning for. I just don't know what they are yet. So we will figure out eventually what those other success bundles will be. But currently, we haven't figured out what the next course will be. One day I wake up and go, Cisco CCNA is absolutely what we're doing next. And then the next day I wake up and go, you know what? Red Hat would be really good as our next course. And then I wake up the next day and go, the AWS cloud stuff is really popular. That's what we should be focusing right there. Every day it's different. Every day it's always a change. So I never know what it's going to be until I start on it. So I don't know what's going to be CPA Marketing Academy. I feel like I'm doing an ad for you. But that's where I come from. I love the idea. I love the success bundles. I love the course notes and the practice exams and kind of bundling everything together, but then have it so that people could get pieces of it. I think it's flexible for people. They can buy what they need or what they think they can use, but then they can upgrade, which is something I don't know a lot of people realize. If you bought course notes, you can upgrade to the other pieces without having to repurchase the course notes again. So there's options there. And I think that's a good way, because I want people to have access to the data, to the information, but I don't want it to be so costly that it doesn't help anybody. So it's a balancing act on my side too. But it seems to be a good balancing act. And so far, we're just going to keep balancing that way. 226 in the chat room, the $5 super chat donation. Thank you for that. Random question. I like those. Would a PCI controller bus driver cause a printer over the network to not print? Well, I guess anything's possible. Well, let's break this out. And also says, thanks for all you do. So let's look at what this would be. So PCI controller bus driver. So inside of your computer, you have a PCI bus. Usually the controllers are sort of built into the operating system itself, but there are certain PCI controllers that you might add as separate adapter cards. And if you do that, you may have to add a separate driver for that adapter card so that your operating system can properly interface with this hardware that it knows nothing about. So the question is, would that cause a printer over the network to not print? Generally, no, but if there was, maybe the printer on the network is connected to the same system. Maybe your printer is plugged into the USB port on that same computer. It's certainly possible there could be a conflict there between interrupts, I/O addresses, and you were just not able to resolve that conflict automatically with the plug and play on the motherboard. In fact, if you look through Microsoft's event viewer, it will give you examples if you run into that situation. Wasn't able to assign an IRQ to this because it was taken by this other thing. And it wasn't able to find any open IRQs. Interrupts is what those are, interrupt requests, to be able to do that. IRQs and memory settings, the memory location of these cards, adapters, and other things is important. So that's why I tell people, have a look at your logs, see if there is a conflict. Now, if this is on a network, if you've got a PCI controller bus in one computer, but the printer's over here on another part of the network and people can't connect to the printer over here, it's unlikely that they are connected to each other. But like any other network problem that you will run into, being able to troubleshoot at the packet level solves and answers all of your questions. I don't know that it solves all your questions, but it certainly answers all your questions because you can see all the packets. So you can see when people are trying to print to the printer. So if you're not already familiar with using a span function on your switch or a port redirection, span is Cisco's version of it. It stands for Switched Port Analyzer. It means that you would plug in an analyzer or a packet capture device into an interface on the switch, and then you tell the switch, anything that goes to this printer, also send a copy down here to my Wireshark device. And then you can just start capturing data. And you can start to see when people try to print what's going on. And collect data that way. That is the ultimate answer. Now, it also requires that you have some of that matrix knowledge. You know, you're seeing all the packets come on the screen. It all looks like craziness. You can't understand what's there. There's a little bit of a learning curve to be able to read the packet captures and understand what's happening at the MAC address level, what's happening at the IP address level, what's happening at the TCP or UDP level, what's happening at the application level. You can see all of that in a packet capture. It's undeniable when you get it in a packet capture. So if you're running into problems printing over the network and you think it's relating to something else, try grabbing a packet capture. Are you seeing the conflict? Are you seeing devices disconnect? Are you seeing the fins in your TCP? Are you seeing alarms or alerts that would be caused by excessive broadcasts or multicasts on the network? Those are things to look for. And just a small subset of things to look for in a packet capture that would at least help you troubleshoot some of those problems. So that's my $5 answer for that super chat, which is if you're having a network problem, the ultimate knowledge, the ultimate information source is a packet capture. It will be this way, by the way, throughout your entire career. If you're having problems on a firewall, the first thing the firewall tech support team is going to ask you, do you have a packet capture? In fact, many firewalls, I will talk specifically about firewalls because my last job was working at Palo Alto Networks as a systems engineer. And there's multiple places to capture the packets. You can capture the packet as it's coming into the interface of the firewall. You can capture the packet before it is processed by the security rule base. You can capture the packet after the security rule base. You can capture the packet as it's coming out of the physical interface. So there's 4 places where you can kind of watch the path of the data as it's going. This can be really useful, especially if you've got just weird security problem or your NAT is not configured properly or your routing is not set up properly. You can see all of that in the packet capture. That's what I would recommend too for that's a weird problem. A PCI controller bus driver and now your printer doesn't work. Doesn't seem like they're related. Or are they? That's what you should do is pass through those. Elliot in the chat room with the $9.99 super chat. Thank you, Elliot, for the donation We do appreciate it. No message on there. Elliot's just being Elliot. Thank you so much for that. It really is appreciated. We thank you so much for your support. It does go a long way. There is other folks in the chat room with some questions. First, some people like the shirt. Thank you. I don't dress myself. Mrs. Professor Messer dresses me. So she is the style in the house. I have none of that. That's my recommendation for you. If you're a technical person who doesn't know what shirt they should be wearing, make sure you marry someone who does. It's such an important thing. We just don't talk about it enough. Let's do some more questions from the chat room. We've got Chris is CPA. You're an accountant trying to change to IT security. Almost the same thing these days. Such a niche amount of information you need to know on the accounting side. Think of the same type of information just in a technical level, and it doesn't change every year. Well, sometimes changes every year, but not to the extent that it does with tax law. The challenge you have, I think, for most people moving from one type of area or vertical market into IT, it's just sort of making the jump. If you've been spending all this time as a nurse, as an accountant, as a teacher, as a truck driver, and now you're trying to jump into IT, you kind of have to start at the bottom again and work your way up. So I would recommend, and this may be a perfect fit, something you need to consider. If you're coming from an accounting arm, it seems like focusing on type of financial IT would be a good concentric diversification, if you will. So it's a way that you can use your knowledge of accounting and finance, and now you're doing ERP implementations. You're working with big tax firms that have a big IT presence. You're working with companies that make accounting software, and you're working there with their support teams, or you're working with their sales teams or systems engineering teams. You're designing the systems that will be used by the accountants, or you're in charge of the cloud-based services that you're setting up for those accountants. Those would be perfect places to slide into because you're so knowledgeable in what's happening below the scenes, and you can apply that knowledge into the technical side of things. That's why I always tell people, if you're moving from one market to another, like you're moving from a vertical market, you're moving from transportation and you want to get into IT, maybe you don't move from transportation. You just need to move into IT and transportation. If you're a nurse, why not be in IT in a hospital? You probably already have contacts there anyway. And hospitals have huge IT organizations. It's nothing but data these days. So that's why I tell people that's what you need to do. Focus on not necessarily starting at the bottom, but moving vertically into the same type of market that you already are in. It might help with the move. I know you didn't ask that. I just thought I'd throw that in. Also in the chat room, I talked earlier about LDAP integrating with Active Directory. Does LDAP store the credentials in its own server for authentication? Not generally, no. And you wouldn't want it to. You've got this Active Directory database that you've built. And when somebody joins the company, their name gets stuck in Active Directory. When somebody moves to a different department, the groups get changed in Active Directory. When somebody leaves the company, their login gets disabled in Active Directory. They no longer have access, or you throw them out of access, out of the Active Directory. So what you are doing when you are authenticating to your VPN and you're using LDAP, you're typing in, the VPN presents you with a login page that says, input your username and password to connect to the VPN. Okay, here's my username and password. And it's sent off to the controller. The controller says, well, I don't know if this is the right username and password because I don't have a local database of usernames and passwords, but I do know where one is because I was previously configured with the Active Directory LDAP information. So let me pass this request on to the Active Directory server. Hey, Active Directory, here's a username and password. Are these right? Active Directory looks in the database and says, yeah, it sends back a message. Yep, that username and password authenticated correctly. And then the VPN system sends back the message to you, says you've been granted access to the VPN. That's it. It doesn't save your password. It doesn't store its own database, because the benefit is in 5 minutes, we could disable the account in Active Directory, and the next time that you tried to authenticate, it would fail because it's always checking against that centralized Active Directory server. So behind me, this is the sort of an evergreen question, so to speak. Is that background a green screen? It is not. I don't have anything to throw it back. Let's throw this. There we go. See? No, that's not a green screen. That was left-handed, so I don't want to hear it. Okay, that's not my primary hand. I can shoot just fine. I'm a big basketball player, but I'm not good on the left side. I'm right-handed. That's how it works. But no, not a green screen, as you can see. Marwan in the chat room with the $9.99 donation in the super chat. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it, and thanks for your support, and thank you for being here. That's an important part of this too. We sure appreciate it. Chris in the chat room, you need me to help set up a home studio for your wife. She's looking to teach yoga classes online. I could teach you. I could go on and on about setting up studios. You don't even really see what's above, and what I've done here is remarkable. What has happened in the industry in the last 7 years. I set this studio up about 7 years ago, and it's effectively what it was when I set it up. It's a newer switching system. The audio is the same. The mics are the same. The structure of the setup is generally the same. But what has changed in the industry is cameras and lighting. It's remarkable what has changed. I used to run really big LEDs that are right in front of me. You don't see them, and they're kind of hard to see in this picture. I used to run really big LEDs, and they were hanging from the ceiling. I do have a picture on my Instagram of this. Maybe I'll try to find that as we are talking. And one of the things that I found when I really started going through all of these technologies most recently is that everything is shrunk down. So now I've got just a standard SLR type 4K camera. That's it. It's not a fancy camera for a studio. I could grab this camera and go on vacation with it. So a simple SLR to set up. But what I found pretty interesting is the lighting has changed so dramatically. And the lighting that cost me thousands of dollars 7 years ago, for $450, I've now set up completely different lighting. The lighting on me looks the same as it did 7 years ago, but the lighting I'm using now are lights from Elgato, which, if you've never seen their lighting, very simple. And what I'm using is the Elgato key light. Let me bring that up so you can see it. It is a tiny little light, not huge at all, and that's it. I mean, that's what I got. In fact, that's my setup right now. You know, little SLR, two lights, one on the left, one on the right, really one in the front and one, you can't see it, one in the front and one to my left. My key is in the front and the fill's over here. But that's it. These tiny little lights, and they are high quality LEDs. I don't need any type of filter in the front to diffuse it because there's one built in. I can control the entire lighting system from my front panel. So if I want to turn the lights off, I can do that, or I can turn them on one at a time. I can change the color, temperature, and the intensity of the light from here. So that's what I'm running. Everything now sort of all in my desk, and it didn't used to be that way. Let me see if I can bring this back up again so you can see. In my desk, I'm recording the video here. I've got the streaming system I'm using is this tiny little box right here from Blackmagic. It's their 4K streamer. In fact, this is the streaming console that I have right here, so I can monitor and check. I know what my audio is. I know exactly what's happening with the stream status. I get help at an instant. Everything's there. The microphone, everything is all self-contained now. And we didn't used to be able to do that. It used to be large separate servers that were somewhere else. And when I saw the Elgato stuff, I thought there's no way that these are going to be as good as the $1,000, $1,500 LED lights that I put in 7 years ago. Well, I was right. They're not as good. They're better. And that freaks me out a little bit because I was not ready for that. What's great about it, though, is that the entire setup that I have in here is shrinking down. Things are coming off of the ceiling. Things are now all on one single desk. It is phenomenal. So if you're setting up some type of studio, I realize this is not one. I guess I could almost do a larger amount of things back here. It's a pretty big, 10-foot gap back here to what I have behind me. But you can do the same thing. Maybe I mount the Elgato lights to the ceiling. Now I'm set up. I can control it from my phone. I can control it from my computer. It's phenomenal. Lighting is one of the hardest things when setting up a studio. So I speak very strongly about the Elgato. I don't have any type of relationship with them. That's just what I've used. I'm so surprised by them, and the way they've been working. It really is phenomenal. So I plan on doing a revamp of the studio over the next year or so, and I want to update the background. I want to put in the Elgato. They have some nice lights that you can bring through on in different colors of lighting, and different strips, and different ways to light. So I want to be able to do that, and I can control the lighting and the color and the intensity of the strips all from the same console. That's just crazy. It's just crazy what we're able to do these days. So it's exciting. Having the new streaming system in my studio desk I've now been using it all month. I started this month, so it's relatively new. So, and it's working like a champ, much better than the other OBS that I had. And it's tiny little box. So it just fits into a rack and takes up no room at all. And it's quiet. There's a little bit of noise. If I open up this 19-inch rack, if you were to listen really closely, you could hear the fan running in there. And it's not something that I would have open normally. But I've got a 19-inch rack on the left side. I've got a 19-inch rack on the right side. So the left side has audio, has an audio processor, has my matrix switch for video. Obviously, I've got audio here in the mixer. I've got video switching here. And that's really it. The computers are in front of me. It's remarkable what you're able to do these days. So people asking, the difference in lighting front view versus back is throwing me off. How do I do that? So if you look at this picture, it looks completely black back there because it is. The rest of my studio back there is completely dark. But in front of me, very bright. So that's because all the lights are facing this way. They are not facing the other way. It is very dark. I've pulled the blinds. There's nothing to be seen over there. So every time I shoot a video, it is exactly the same lighting in here every time. I don't have to worry about the sun. I don't have to worry about it being night. It's just exactly the same in every situation. So that's pretty nice to have that option. But it's dark in here until you look in the back, because I'm lighting. There's two very large lights behind me, and I'm lighting all of the background with what's behind me. So that's why it seems like it should be different, but it really isn't. It's about the way that works. I'm trying to find an easy way to go back through my archive of pictures on Instagram to try to find one individual post, and it's impossible. It is just impossible. Did I tag it with something? I probably didn't. Did I save it? I didn't. So I could just keep scrolling through the 1,000 Instagrams that I have here while we're talking, which I don't mind doing. Since I am talking, I do want to show you a picture of the studio from behind my desk when I have all these lights on, which I think should give you a perspective of the way this is set up. How far have I gotten here? We're just scrolling. I don't put a lot of non-pop quiz Instagrams out there anymore. So right now I'm sort of just scrolling through Instagrams. I think we're coming up on the beginnings though, and I should be able to pull up the picture of the studio here pretty quickly. But so if anybody's ever working or you're thinking of creating content or building these things out, there's never been a better time. It's never been as easy as it is now to set up a studio, to go live on the internet, to build some type of content. If you're considering or thinking about doing it, it's been sort of a longer process. We've been doing this now for 14 years, going on 15 years. So it's not an overnight thing, but it is very gratifying, very fun to do. All right, I finally got to the point where I've got the better pictures. So there's a pretty good shot. So this is kind of an older picture of the studio, but this is it. So if you were to stand behind my camera, and I'm using a different camera now, this is the older 1080p that we were doing, but that's what it is behind me. So you can kind of see how everything's brighter now behind me. But behind these, this is the big LED light that I'm using, which is I forget the models, but I've got them on my website under professormesser.com/studio. And there's these enormous LED lights. You can't even buy them anymore. They're just not available. And I've just put on the same spot. I've just put up a Elgato key light right there, and we're done. So amazing, so simple to have this. This weird looking contraption here is really designed for a studio so that you can move cameras up and down and around very easily. And I used to have other things on this, but right now it has a single camera, but it's not connected to my desk. So early videos, if I was hitting the keyboard or I was moving things around on my desk, I was even just putting your hand on the desk, the camera would shake. And that was just annoying to me. So now my camera is physically separate. I can bang on my desk and the camera doesn't shake around because it's on a separate stand for a camera. That's what that weird looking thing is on that Instagram. So that's why I have that kind of in the middle. It works out well. It's sort of one of these things where this is an evolution over time where we've really we started out with literally 100-watt halogen garage lights to light what we were doing. As you can imagine, those heated things up very quickly. We realized very fast, maybe we should get LEDs. Just LEDs were so expensive back then. But now we do, and it's worked out really great. The real key for me is sort of keeping up to date with the technologies. So for example, we're now doing everything in 4K. The switching system that I have in front of me, here we go. So all of the video switching I do is on this Blackmagic device. It's a Blackmagic Television Studio 4K is what it's called. The entire thing is in this box. There's no separate unit. There used to be a separate TriCaster that I would run things from. Now everything's just in this one box, and it's 4K. And I can plug in 8 inputs, and it just goes. It's just a monster. It just runs like a champ. And it has all the same functionality that I used before, just in a completely separate box that's now just sitting on the top of my desk. And it's small. It's tiny. I'll get out of the way. It's just a tiny little box for this. The audio there's newer versions of the audio out, but this is an audio system that is all voice over IP, really. It's audio over IP through Axia. Remarkable technology. They have a newer version of it out, and this one fits very well for a studio of my size. So that's worked out well too. But it's great because I can have call-in lines like we did last month, for example. The call-in lines are set up so that it doesn't echo back to the people who are calling, and it's just built into the mixer. Normally, you'd have to configure that separately. It's just built into this. So that's a little bit of inside baseball since you asked, and the things that we were doing with it. But that's why it's not a green screen. It's not fake. Everything you see is real. It's just dark in the front of me, and it's lit in the back of me. That's the only difference. I've thought at times that we would have a green screen or we would do something where we could swap it out, but it just never looks right. If you've ever seen a green screen, they just never quite, they just don't look quite right. So I preferred setting up you know, just a little bit of a background with real things in it. And occasionally I'll move things around. The cricket ball will move around, and the different pictures will move around. But usually they stay right where they are, just so I can keep consistency between the videos that I do when I'm working on them. So since we're talking tech, Stephen asks, how many traditional computers are in this setup? Well, let's look at it. So we have monitor here is a 4K monitor. It's more of an industry, put it in a rack kind of 4K monitor. And I've got it's hooked up. All of the video input and output in this room is set up into a matrix switch, a Blackmagic SDI matrix switch. SDI is the coax. It's the signal used that's run the 4K over coax, 4K and HD, and any other video signal over coax. And it looks, the coax, do I have? So on the back of the switcher, how convenient. See, you can kind of see over my shoulder there. Looks like that. That's the back of my switcher, or really the back of I think that's the matrix switch. But all the video is going in and out over these BNC connectors for the video. So in this room, let's see what we have. So this is just a video screen that I can watch the status of the live stream. That's how important the live stream quality is what I've got running there. So that just keeps me up to date. When I'm shooting video for my courses, that's usually just powered off. It's not even there. And in fact, it's got a little fan in there and it's kind of noisy. So I plan on swapping that out in my next revision to the studio to something that's probably more traditional 4K monitor, which is what's here to the right of that. So this 4K monitor in front of me at 11 o'clock is the video switching output. So you can see that that's there. Now, all of this is on a matrix switch, as I mentioned. So if I wanted to change what was on that's a monitor by Dell. It's just a Dell 4K monitor. If I wanted to change that to be the output of the streamer, which one did I put this on? It is the auxiliary, the web presenter. So if I wanted to see what streamer, I could just change the output and it's going to show me the streaming output. So that matrix switch allows me to put anything anywhere. I just put all the video into it, all the audio, all the outputs into it, and then I could switch it back and forth. If I wanted to see a big picture of me, I could change it to be a big picture of me if I wanted to. I don't know why anybody would want that, but there it is. Let's go back to the video switcher so I can see what's going on. So that's the video switcher output. It's coming directly from that screen display is coming from this video switching device in front of me. Technically not a computer, but certainly a screen. In front of me, all of these things that you see me working with is a 2017 iMac Pro. So already it's a technology. Apple doesn't even make iMac Pros anymore. The technology of an iMac Pro has been leapfrogged a couple of times. So it's kind of an older system. I'm doing all of my day-to-day on the system, which sort of speaks to how well this iMac Pro was made from the very beginning. The iMac Pro was going to kind of be the professional iMac version that would be an alternative to the Mac Pro, which is the much more expensive professional content. And it just never took off, so they got rid of the line. And what they found was that they could make regular iMacs these days that were much faster than the Pro versions. So it didn't make sense to have a completely separate line. Eventually, that machine in front of me will get swapped out, but that is a real computer. That's a full-sized, all-in-one iMac computer in front of me. So there's your first computer in the room right there. That's fantastic to use. In fact, all my editing, all my 4K, everything I do is on this system. So I'm running it ragged right now. It needs an upgrade, and hopefully it'll get one at the beginning of the year. To the right of this is a secondary screen on the same iMac. So these are effectively the same system. I'm just able, I'll move this over to the other side, for example. So it's the same machine, just with multiple monitors. This is not a computer. It's a simple 4K, 5K monitor rather. But that's all it is. It's just a single output for the machine that's in front of me. And normally those are the only two things in here that are really up and running constantly, is this one machine. I have the iMac in front, or the iPad in front of me. For those of you that were kind of following along, get close enough for the Face ID. Not going to happen, is it? There we go. So as I was doing my presentation, I hit play and I could see the current slide and the slide that comes after based on the slides are really on this MacBook Pro that's to my right. So this was just my presenter's view of the world. And if I wanted to go forward and backward, I can move towards different slides just by sliding around in there and I get to see what's coming up next. That's what that is. So that is, I guess you could say that's the second computer in the room is the iPad. It's almost always in here too, because I've got other monitoring systems on here. I've got my cameras are on here. So if I'm waiting for UPS, I can bring up a camera in the front of the house and it's just always running and I don't have to have it up on the screens because I'm usually using both of these screens heavily anyway. And then this iMac Pro, or the MacBook Pro that's to my right, I guess that would be the third computer that's in here. This is normally not in here. Normally, I don't have this computer next to me because I don't need it. How many computers one person need? For me, just the one. I need this and the iPad and I'm good. But when I'm doing a live stream, I like to have this as the slide machine. It's doing the slideware slide presentations. And when I travel, that's the machine I take with me anyway. So if I'm hopping on a plane, if I'm going on vacation, if I'm doing something and I like to have a full-size operating system machine, I usually take my MacBook Pro with me and I take my iPad with me because I'll use them in different ways depending on what I'm doing when I'm away from the studio. And that's it. Everything is now self-contained in this room. The streamer used to be a separate server in the other room. Don't use that anymore. The streamer is right here in that tiny little screen that you see to my right down here. And it's the web presenter 4K from Blackmagic. Runs like a champ. It's been running very well this month. It's had its shakedown cruise was this month, and it has really run well. Really pleased with it, and it'll stay now here because it all fits perfectly in a very small amount of space. Well, that's the studio tour. Wasn't expecting to do one, and I really should, as the year we're getting here at the end of the year, be a perfect time to do a studio tour. And I really should do one that's really close up, and here's what we're doing. In the meantime, if you want to know more about what we're doing, I need to update it now that I've added a few more features to it. But if you go to professormesser.com/studio, I do have the Professor Messer Studio listed here, and I've got a number of the different devices I use, like the Heil mic is what I use. I use a Panasonic camera. There's the video switcher. There's the audio mixer and some of the other things we use just to keep things running. Streaming server no longer here. And it was getting kind of old anyway to be set up that way. So all of this needs to get changed, needs to be modified. In fact, the streaming server no longer exists. Just doesn't fit into the mix of those. So for the home lab, what is the best version of Windows Server to start playing with? You know what? It doesn't matter. Does not matter. If you're doing a home lab, you might as well use the latest that's out there. If I was going to go to Microsoft and download, do they even give you the option anymore for the different versions? Microsoft Server Evaluation, download. Find it for me, Google. Windows Server in the Microsoft Evaluation Center is what we're going to look at. Yes, they do. So they give me an option for Windows Server 2022. You know, if you're setting it up for your lab at home, that's the one I'd go with, probably, because most companies haven't quite gone to that yet. It's relatively new, as the name implies. Most companies are doing 2016 and 2019. Some are back here in 2012, R2. I've seen some of those. They're still out there. It's hard to get rid of these servers. The 2022, though, I would do because it's newer. It's not that much different than the previous version, so you can still find plenty of documentation on it. But every company knows they're going to be moving to some of the latest versions, and it will be great if you walked in the room and go, oh, yeah, I set up Server 2022. Runs great. Here's the things I did and what ran into it. Because they figure if you can do Server 2022, we got people that can do 2019, 2016, and 2012. That's simple. So I would use 2022. I think when I did my Windows 7 series, it was the 2012 R2 that I was using. But I've used 2019 before to set some of those things up, and it worked great. So, yeah, Microsoft did do away with the Windows Server certification. They sort of did away with the Microsoft Windows Desktop. They added it back, and it's not quite the same as it used to be. But if you go out to Microsoft's site, you'll notice a huge emphasis of their certification program right now is Azure. It's all cloud. Cloud, 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 cloud. Microsoft has found very quickly, and as it turns out, the big bulk of their revenue, a huge percentage of their revenue, is coming from the cloud for Microsoft. So they're pushing everything that way. Oh, you don't have your cloud certification? Here's all the certifications we offer, mostly cloud. And in fact, many companies doing so much on the cloud, having a cloud cert, I think is pretty valuable right now. AWS certainly has the market segment, but right behind them is Microsoft. They have come up very quickly in the cloud business. So that you can't go wrong with either one of those, because a lot of the topics, a lot of the concepts are interchangeable. Yeah, they use different words. They implement it in different ways, but the concepts are the same between them. So that's a great way to do it. It amuses me that you would think this. So Chris asks, does anyone recognize me out in the world from seeing me online? Thankfully, no. Nope. Thankfully, no. No, there's not that many of us out there. Nobody asks for an autograph when I'm eating. You know, I'll have to push through the crowds to do that. No. I would like to do more get-togethers, though. I'm hoping sort of not this year, but a year from now, once we get these certifications out of the way, that we can do a few more get-togethers. Maybe the world will be back where we can go to trade shows, where we can all meet in a city and do something. That would be kind of nice to do. But no, it does not happen organically, thankfully. I would be in the wrong business for something like that. But it's nice to meet people who I've worked with in the past, or people that when near the end of when I was working at Palo Alto Networks was one where I could go into a meeting during the day as a Palo Alto Network systems engineer, and they go, oh yeah, you're Professor Messer. So that did happen from time to time, but only because I'm talking to the people that are getting the certs. There was a direct link, but that's just the beauty of YouTube, I think. I wouldn't say famous, but it's nice to have, to be able to meet people that way, to be able to have conversations with people that way. It breaks the ice so easily. And throughout my career, most of my career was spent, I guess the first half of my career spent more as a system and network administrator, and the second half of my career was more as a systems engineer, which was much more social. Systems engineering for pre-sales was one where you traveled a lot and you got to meet and talk to people all the time. I would speak a lot at trade shows, do a lot of demonstrations. It was more socially engaging than being a systems engineer for a single company that you went into the same data center every day. So it's kind of nice to have that ability to meet people easily and say hi and what do you do and where are you from. I was just talking, my daughter invited a friend over last night. He went through my videos to get his certification and eventually got a job in technology. But I had not talked to him since he did that. He'd gone through high school and now he's gone through college and done all of these certifications and got the job. And, you know, it's been 10 years since I saw him last. So it's kind of nice to have that conversation. Like, oh, I used your video to get the cert. Now here's what I'm doing. And then we got into a topic of setting up like the virtual pinball machines, which are amazing. I would love one of those with some of the old pinball emulations, because I used to play them when they were the original pinball machines. It would be great to have one of those virtual systems. So I was asking him more questions about how you set that up. What do you need? What does it run on? What is the display table? Is that a monitor? How can you do 4K? What does it take to do 4K? What do you have to upgrade? You have all these questions. And it was great to have those types of questions because we already had the conversation going with the certification stuff. So it's always nice to do that. And then that got into a conversation about smoking, not smoking, but smoking meat, because I love making ribs. He does makes some jerky, and we use the same type of smoking system, the Traeger grill. So we talk Traeger. So these conversations naturally kind of start with technology, but then they move into other parts of just interests. It's great to have those conversations because I want to know more about what they're doing. Oh, how long does it take you to make the jerky? What is the best meat I should be using to do the jerky? I should try doing something like that myself. So we have, and then I told him my secret for doing ribs on the Traeger that are perfect every time. So those are great conversations to have. Are they technical conversations? No, but I think they were made a little bit more easy because we had a single place to start at, and then we sort of branched off from there. And those, to me, are the best conversations to have. So that's where I would focus. It's not really necessarily about all of the things that you want to do or go or see or meet people at a certification level. It's kind of the things that go after that, outside of that perspective. Well, I've droned on now for another couple of hours, but that kind of gives you a perspective of what we want to be able to accomplish going forward. You've kind of got a little tour of the studio, which I think is great. We'll do some more of this. Come back next month. We've got A+ next week on Tuesday and Thursday. We're just bringing them right back around. There's no delays. Then we'll do Network Plus the week after. We'll do Security Plus the week after that. And then it's Thanksgiving in the United States, everybody. That happened quick. End of the year's coming up. There's no better time than now to get certified. If you're working on Security Plus, Network Plus, or A+, keep working. Maybe you can get these done by the end of the year. And when 2022 comes around, you'll be ready for anything. Thanks for joining us on the study group. Thanks for being here, chat room. Thank you for your super chats. Thanks for your ongoing support. We could not do this without you. Thanks for being here. We will see you next time on the Security Plus study group. Thanks, everybody.